You guys follow David Westerlin on YouTube?
I don't know who
He's
that is.
he's the composer he's a video game composer or translator or whatever for different video games. He put together the only Castlevania concert that's been performed to this day.
That's pretty awesome because I know they've had like
2010.
because I know they've had like Zelda concerts and even like Pokemon concerts. The fact that the Castlevania one that makes more sense because it's more orchestral and more grander. So
Yeah, and I think it took place in Sweden, like in some grand uh, concert hall or something there, and it had like this little sign on the door. It was like Castlevania concert. It was so. It's like, dude, I would have made a huge production, like posters and all kind of advertisements for it. You know?
Yeah,
every
that would have been fun.
every so often you just kind of go down the YouTube rabbit hole and just like look up this one song. And I was looking up Metal Gear Solid themes or something, and somehow I don't know what it was, but it was like a composer of doing like different video game and anime soundtracks, and they had like Evangelion and Metal Gear Solid like all in the same like concert. And I could just imagine all like, because he had a lot of vocalists there, because I can imagine all these 60-year-old people sitting there doing the doing like the vocal like extra thing, and look up every so often like, what the fuck are we singing this for? Is those robots fighting? Is that robot on a cross? What the shit's going on here?
You know, it was cool though on this Castlevania concert thing though. They actually had an actual organ, like real one,
Oh,
and it was above on the top. And the guy who's playing Simon, I don't know if he was Simon or Trevor or who, he was one of the Belmonts. And the only time you saw him, you only saw his back the whole time because when the organist's playing, they're facing keyboard, which is so their back is to the audience. So he's like up on this riser all the way on the top, playing the whole time in the organ while the whole full orchestrated ensemble's going. And like at one point they have like Dracula, they wheel him out in this coffin, and he comes out and he's like doing this whole dramatic thing while they're playing Castlevania music. I was like, man, I so wish I could have gone to that or even knew about it,
It's
Kind
one
of
of those
sucks.
things just gets by you after the fact. Like, 'cause that right there, it actually sounds like, because Castlevania is like a respected series, but it's one that I think people still kind of overlook. So knowing that it got that much of like fanfare, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that. I talk to people, I try to advertise Castlevania, they're like, what? Castlevania? And then they're like, did you watch it yet? No, I don't. And then some people watch it and like, nah, it's not really my thing. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, shit's gold, man. And
Well,
now
we're
this
already. Oh, sorry.
blood
Go ahead.
and now this Blood of Zeus has come out. I want to watch that, but I'm gonna wait till after Halloween to start watching that because I don't have any time.
That's always a problem in life, is the time issue.
Well, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, since we're already recording, all that quiet Castlevania Symphony talk is probably good enough to start anywhere. Anyway, I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
I'm Spencer Scott Holmes, and a special guest coming back to you.
Blah, blah, blah. FD Gross, aka Frank Gross. What's up?
We're here on the
Okay.
Old Man Orange podcast, coming at a little bit different. We had some fun technical difficulties, like life likes to provide. Watched the spark shoot around my computer, and we'll figure out that mess in the morning and see, because that didn't come back on. I'm guessing that's a power supply issue. I'll literally have to pull like a Pawn Stars and be like, and call in like that friend, that's gonna be like, hey, Mr. Computer Expert friend, come on by and
It
be like,
always
hey, find me over to come play video games. Well, no,
always seems to be difficulties when I come on your show. I mean,
I know.
it's a curse. It's a vampire's curse or something. I don't know.
Well, it always is during Halloween too, most of the time, because they're usually covering something Halloween oriented. Like, so maybe it's like, oh, the crescent moon is out, the planets have aligned, or some shit like that.
Yeah, it's just one of those weird things. I don't know why it has to be that way, but for some reason we just always have those issues.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? But this Halloween is gonna be a full moon, which is pretty awesome.
Ooh. I know, and it's on Saturday too, which is always kind of nice because I don't know what it is. Something is always. I don't know. I have to say this. Something has always bothered me is when people like Halloween's on a different day, but people just like, well, I'm just going to celebrate Saturday because I don't care. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, seems weird. I mean, would you celebrate Christmas just on a different day just if it wasn't there? Or would you celebrate like, I don't know, something like the 4th of July? Like, well, it's not. The 4th of July is on a Wednesday, so I'm going to celebrate it, when I feel like the 4th of July happened on July 9th.
Yeah. But I think Halloween is one of those holidays where, to me, I'm celebrating it the whole month.
Mm-hmm. Good longevity out of it.
I think it is. It's definitely all of October.
Actually, I think I start in September.
It's like how you kind of see around like the end of Halloween as we start seeing Christmas stuff pop up, and there used to be the thing, shit, it needs to be at least wait until November, or at least after Thanksgiving for Christmas stuff. Sometimes they start a little early, like after like just around mid-October. For you're already like looking at pumpkins like mid-September, like just got to be prepared.
Yeah, I'm going to Publix, which is our grocery store here. I don't know if you know what Publix is, but
never heard of a Publix.
Yeah, well, that's our grocery stores down here, and I start going there in September, and I'm looking for Oktoberfest ale,
There you go.
and pumpkins, and I'm like, the second I see those in Publix, and okay, Halloween season's here. That's when
exactly.
Officially.
I always think it's kind of funny though too, because there's some people out there that like it seems like, oh, it's like Halloween. I got to watch some horror movies and got to play some like survival horror games and so on. And I always kind of go like, well, I kind of play those like sprinkled throughout all year round. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, you just kind of need a little bit of a horror fest and some good times.
I did download a game recently, indie game called Dark Woods, and it's one of those survival horror games. But this one is aerial shot, and it's very ambient, and it messes with you, and it's not easy. And it even like on the load screen, it says, "This game is hard. Be patient. Focus." Like that's all they give you. They're like, "We're not holding your hand in this game." Shit.
Look, if you can't beat the game, we understand it. Some people are just bitches. So if you can't cut it, then hey, here's a pink bow.
I was just about to say, yeah, just like, yeah, you can put it on easy. Just don't let your friends see you with it.
Actually, there's no easy mode. Actually, there's a normal, which it says this is literally the description. Normal. If you die, you only lose half your stuff. Hard, you lose all your stuff when you die. And then nightmares is like, permanent.
You start over.
Permanent death.
Sometimes you get those games where it just seems to kind of like, there's that kid on the schoolyard who would just be like, oh, hey man, want to play like Bloody Knuckles? Oh, what's that? That's where you just like punch your knuckles against each other until they're bloody. First one to bitch out's a pussy. You're like, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Are you a fucking bitch? Oh, no. Okay, let's do this then. Okay, ow. I think since Dark Souls, that shit has become the norm for a lot of video games.
I got rid of Dark Souls. I couldn't stand that game.
I never played it, but I just hear everyone talk about it, and I watch Game Grumps every once in a while, and I saw how hard it is. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Well, it was like I got the Bloodborne one because that seemed like it looked like it was kind of in a Castlevania sort of vibe, and I was like, yeah, that looks pretty cool. That looks sort of like Lords of Shadow or something like that. And then like when I was kind of playing the gameplay, I'm like, I can see why somebody likes it, but it's just not really for me. And then like, I don't know, it didn't really have like that Castlevania vibe that I thought it was going to sort of have. So I was just like, I don't know. And I will say like those kind of games where it's just like, oh, you died? Well, guess what? Your stuff's left out there. Good luck going to get it again. It's like, maybe if I was in high school and I just had this free time to burn off, that wouldn't bother me. But when you're kind of older, you're like, you know what? There's a time and a place. Not saying anything against it. I know people love the game and so on. I just realized it wasn't for me.
Yeah, same here. Like I got to a certain point where I was just like, I get hit twice and I'm dead, and I gotta memorize every single move. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I just know I have bad gamer rage as it is. I'm like, a controller is being broken. We just moved into this place. Something's getting thrown through a window at some point. I'm just not gonna even bother.
Yeah. Yeah, not too many games bother me. That one definitely bothered me, but here again, I grew up in a generation where playing the very first few Castlevanias in 1986, 87. Those are some hard games, some hard platformers, man.
Oh
You gotta
yeah.
you gotta have some patience for that.
And
Well,
I don't know if we got this on the recording because you guys are definitely the Castlevania fans. My knowledge I kind of get from Spencer and you every so often, Frank, and then from the TV show. Um, so I actually, and I remember we said, Ryan, you gotta play a Castlevania game. You gotta come back to us. Well, about a year ago, I did play a Castlevania game. I had the SNES Classic, and I played Castlevania 4, and I liked it. I can kind of see it had some early, is before it kind of had more of its signature. It was more like a spooky ghost, but as it went on, I'm sure it developed more of like the signature and the style that we see from Castlevania games, but I still found it to be a really fun game, and I understand why people like it so much.
Yeah, it's at the Super Castlevania is definitely one of the iconic, at least soundtracks that's out there. Uh, so many people are recreating those songs in guitar duos and uh, concertos and all this stuff. It's just amazing how much it's influenced the music industry, in my opinion. Anyway.
And it is also interesting how Castlevania was this thing before it really had this, what it is known as today. They're like, well, it's a video game, right? It's a kid thing. So, throw there's that Captain N cartoon. Throw Trevor Belmont in that shit. Like, is he a vampire hunter? I don't know. Is he? Let's make him look like a fucking climber. Okay, and now we have that same guy, like hard drinking. He's in a cartoon where there's violence and fucking every 5 minutes. So,
well, I do like the Captain In stuff. Like there is something like when you throw one of those episodes on, it does take you back.
Oh yeah.
Even if they're goofy as all can be. The only thing I just hate is it's Kid Icarus is the only character that just drives me up the wall in that thing. Because the way he always rhymes stuff in that stupid like way. I can't remember how he does exactly, but
Icarus,
like everything.
Frickerus, some shit. Like
yeah,
that.
like that kind of. It's just like you just want to go grab him by the throat and be like slap him around, be like, shut the fuck up, fucking annoying. But no, Castlevania 4 though I think is like the best gateway Castlevania you could jump into for the old ones at least.
Yeah. And yeah, Simon's Quest, good little adventure game that's pretty easy as well. Not too hard.
I'll have to keep my eye out for that one.
But it's very limited soundtrack. It's only got like 7 tracks.
Yeah,
okay.
but that's where Bloody Tears comes from, so it's all okay.
Yeah. But those soundtracks just plays over and over and over. It just adds to your anxiety. You're going through those sluggish mansions and stuff. All the lag.
Yeah, that was like a game that was made on a much larger scale than the NES was really supposed to handle.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, always tons of fun stuff there. Well, we decided that we should do like a Castlevania kind of theme stuff, so we went with the IDW comic book. I kept saying the manga, and I was getting that confused with the. I'm glad because when I kept saying the manga, I'm like, oh shit, somebody's gonna probably read the other one that came out with Curse of Darkness. And get confused.
Wait, so
Well, that's what I looked. I couldn't find it. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? I don't see a manga. I see an IDW comic.
Was there a manga with Curse of Darkness?
Yeah, there's a Curse of Darkness one as well too that really came out around the exact same time. I think it's 2 volumes. It's kind of tough to find, but I know it's there.
Because I think because at the end of the comics, they advertise when that game was coming out, and that was in 2005. I wondered they probably did a comic or a graphic novel to kind of promote it, probably,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think it's one of those ones like that. It must have been like maybe for the Japanese release. Even though I could have, I was weird. I was looking it up the other day on Amazon. I couldn't seem to find the physical copy of it. And I was like, I know that these have been there before, but yeah.
Oh, we should mention another thing we're covering is 30 Days of Night. We'll do Castlevania first, just in case people were just listening just for 30 Days a Night. Like, wait, what the fuck? You know, and they just want to skip ahead of that. We will be doing Castlevania, the comic, and then 30 Days a Night after that. So, yeah.
And, we go on tangents. That's what we're all about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the bread and butter of this show.
Yeah.
5 minutes of the actual thing we have labeled, and then, 59 minutes of us what about that new Batman movie? Or what did you see that? What if Batman was played by Sacha Baron Cohen? I don't know. That'd be fucked up, right?
Yeah, I'd see that.
I would definitely watch that.
Especially if it's played really straight too, because I bet you he would kill it that way.
Oh, he'd do a good Joker or a good Riddler, I bet too.
Yeah, good. It's just the one-man show by Sacha Baron Cohen of Batman.
Be weird, to be unsettling. All right, let's see what happens.
Or he would.
I heard there's this love scene with Catwoman. He plays both Batman and Catwoman. So
he could be a Borat version of Joker.
Oh, Jesus!
I squirt you in the face.
Well, I can even just imagine, Spencer, what you just said about he could be love scene between Batman and Catwoman. He's playing both of them. He does that thing in Bronson where he has one side of his face, his outfit is himself, the other is a politician or something, and he's just twisting sides back and forth every time he's saying but I don't want to go back to jail. You do what we say, we'll fuck you with our medicine. That whole part.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Played very serious though, so it's that's the part where it's people look in the audience am I supposed to laugh here? I don't get it. Or am I supposed to laugh, or is he shooting for an Academy Award? I'm not too sure.
I don't know if I can give this an Academy Award, but I can't turn away.
So just before we start going into the Belmont Legacy, how are you guys doing out there with the whole COVID thing? Anyway, just curious, because here it's kind of, they're taking it kind of seriously, but not as serious. I was just wondering how serious it is over by you.
Well, I hear Florida is the exact opposite of California, where Florida is full of American freedom and California is full of American lockup. It's literally like Marvel Civil War between Florida and California, it seems like. And you're like Captain America over there, and we're like Tony Stark over here. Gavin Newsom's in his fucking War Machine outfit.
It's crazy.
We're doing all right. I mean, I know that, you watch the news every day, or you don't even have to watch, you just overhear it. And you hear the numbers going up and down and fluctuating. Really at this point, I started a new job about 2 or 3 months ago. I moved actually out of San Francisco from Oakland to Guerneville. And my job, I'm dealing with dogs all day, so minimal people. So it's so most you can do is wear a mask and, wash your hands. It's kind of all you really can do by this point, and trying to keep your distance. And I'm doing okay over here. No friends or family on my side have really been too affected. I've known people who've got it, but then came out of it okay. But then your stories about an Olympic swimmer who's in his late 20s who gets it and he's still fucked up. So it's kind of hard to know, but everything's going on my end. I can't speak for Spencer. Everything on my end is going as good as it can go, going fairly good. Just being careful about it,
Yeah. Likewise here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those ones I already stay home quite often as is, so nothing really changed for me.
You didn't have Twitter. You what the fuck why is everyone wearing masks?
That pretty much. That would be true. The only thing that pissed me off is the movie theater came back for 3 glorious weeks after being closed for 6 months. Because I remember when this first happened, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll be at the movie theater all the time. This is perfect. You know what I mean? And then they take the movie theater away. They're like, the movie theater is the most dangerous place ever. You know what I mean? But God forbid Walmart and Target can't be. They got to be open. You know what I mean? Which realistically is the most dangerous place on the planet to be at, is Walmart and Target. But a movie theater where you're already separate, it's got fucking high ceilings and everything like that. Nope, that thing can't be open. So it got put so far on the low totem pole, pissed me off so much. The second that it opens back up, comes back for 3 weeks, and then they decide to close it again because 007 ain't coming out, so fuck it, nobody's coming out.
Yeah, I wondered about that, and I really thought about movie theaters and their closure. Man, they could totally, distance people with the seats and tape it off or whatever, and people can get their assigned seats, but then I'm thinking about they're probably concerned about like the amount of time that people are in there. You know what I mean? And then of course there's some people that believe that it's airborne, and I mean I don't believe that it's airborne, but you know,
Yeah.
it's like 50-50, you know. Some people do, some people don't. You know, I don't know.
Well, this is really
something about the movie theater is, I think another thing about that is you got like, I'm not being a dick to people who work in movie theaters, but a lot of time you got like young 16, 19-year-old kids kind of is like, well, let me go speak to my general manager, you know. And I honestly feel like, you know, if some asshole is being loud or obnoxious in a movie, what's this little like 15-year-old kid gonna do working part-time to be able to do about that? So same, what are you gonna do during like COVID time? So that's probably that. That's why I honestly think there should be. I have no problem saying this. People might say this is too extreme. I'm fine with armed guards in movie theaters. I'm fine with that. If someone gets too mouthy during the next, you know, Marvel movie or whatever, just taser that fucker and throw him out.
I agree.
Totally fine with that.
100% for that. Like, damn it, you know what I mean? Like, you come in, you be quiet. That's how it has to be. This is really what happened, is because at the movie theater, where, you know, what they were doing is they had assigned seats. So, and then when you got your assigned seat, it literally gave you like a barrier around you. So say if like all three of us went to the movie theaters and we got an assigned seat, I kid you not, we had a whole sector of the movie theater to ourselves now because of the way that the computer gave you your barrier. So three people's barriers together created this like vortex that you had. Well, I know what happened is like the producers of fucking like, you know, 007, all that kind of stuff walked in one day and be like, this is fucking it? 20 people fucking maximum at a screening? You fucking kidding me? Like, just look at this. Be like, we're never going to make the money back. Fucking 007 ain't coming out. Fuck you guys. You aren't getting my movie. I know that's what happened because
Daniel Craig himself.
It was one of those ones that, like, because I was going through, I'm like, dude, this is great, dude. It's like, I'm guaranteed to get a barrier from people. I never will have to sit next to anybody. Perfect. You know what I mean? Like, it's everything you could have wanted in a movie theater. But you know, it's like the guy producing the movie. Why you would never be able to release like a big movie because you'd be like, it would never sell out. Even if you had all the screenings in the daytime, it's like you probably would never get close to making money back. You know? So I do kind of understand where those producers are kind of like, okay, this is kind of stupid. Like we need something better than this. Like everybody gets, you know, 6 seats, you know, around them.
Here's also another lesson right here. Sonic the Hedgehog beat Tenet. You got to keep that in mind. Sonic the Hedgehog beat Christopher Nolan. Yeah, it's the third most successful movie this year. I mean, don't get me wrong. I liked that movie. So did you, Spencer. I don't know if you saw it, Frank, but we both liked that movie. And it's one of these things of like, I would not have guessed that would have been like maybe somewhere in the top 15 or top 10. I would not have guessed the top 5 or top 3.
Well, maybe it's because the lack of actual movies coming out, right?
Yeah, I mean, who did you saw this coming? That was the last movie. That and Onward, I think, were the last 2 big movies to come out right before COVID became a big deal.
Well, I remember the very last movie I was able to see, and this is why I'll probably never forget this movie because of it, was that Vin Diesel Bloodshot movie. Like, that wasn't like a movie that you would think of being like such a, you know, it was fun. You know, it was what it was. It was fun, you know, not amazing, but not bad. Just that middle of the road movie. But since that was literally the last movie to come out before everything shut down, it's like, I'll always think of that Vin Diesel movie. You know, it's just one of those ones, but, yeah, it's such a bummer not having those movies, though. That to me, that's like the only thing I go outside anymore for, like, other than like outside itself. It's like one of those ones, like, the world is taking everything else I love away, but don't you dare take my movie. Oh, you took my movie theater. Well, I guess I'll just lock myself up under this rock now because there's nowhere left to go.
That's what it takes. That's what it takes. So we should probably jump into the comic now.
Well, I was going to say real quick, Frank, how was your book sales going during this time period? Because that's always the other interesting thing. It's like when you don't have conventions and so on, or any kind of public venues to kind of go to and hustle and deal.
Public venues and you know, before COVID hit, we started to do this micro little book tour thing that was partnering up with some other authors, and we were starting to go to like local breweries and stuff to promote our books and stuff. And then we did like 2 of them, and then COVID hit, and it was like pretty much put a botch on that. But we were starting to start out strong, and you know, so that was cool. I mean, it wasn't. It was more of just more publicity than anything. It didn't really help with sales per se, but it was good. It was good to get the word out, and but actually, sales have been actually higher because people are at home with nothing to do. So,
Yeah.
probably selling more ebooks than paperback copies, but um, sales have been a little bit higher than normal, so that's good.
Oh, well, that works out then.
Well, that sounds like a really cool concept. Just going to like different breweries, just like doing Q&As on the books and all that, doing a couple of authors together. That's a pretty awesome idea. Too bad this whole shitstorm happened. But
and there's beer there too, so
that too.
It really helps.
Well, especially if it went on to like Halloween, that would have been cool. Just have like some kind of like red wine kind of.
Totally. I mean, we had a whole lineup of different places we were gonna do, and then it just kind of like disappeared.
Plenty of fall beers to come into by that point. So yeah, that sucks that fell through. But at least digital sales are going up on the book and all that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's one of those ones I've been wanting to do for a long time. Is like kind of like a mixed match, sort of like I always thought it'd be fun if you kind of had one that was like it was a tour, but you kind of combined it with like you had maybe like two podcasts that sort of played. Then you sort of had like a band that was kind of there too, like almost like I consider the band being like the warm-up act. You know what I mean? Like you'd have a band that would play, and then a podcast would go on. Then you'd have the band play again. Then the other podcast would kind of go on. And as that was sort of happening, it's almost like you had like a mini little kind of convention where you could have people's books and comic books and so on just right over there too. So it's like, hey, it's a mixed match kind of thing together. Like you could do it at little teeny events. You wouldn't need very big things, but you did a tour just no different than like if you're a band or something.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that would be totally something cool if the gateways ever open again.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. If they ever let us back out again, sometimes it's one of those ones where it's just like this. It's that thing where it's like, oh, because I know for myself, like I do get those good like digital sales too here and there, but I could definitely wheel and deal way more if I can sell like in person.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Frank.
No, it's fine. In person though, I kind of feel like I'm like I don't want to like push selling my book to people in person. I kind of like want it to be out there, and if people want it, they'll get it. You know what I'm saying? Like if it intrigues them enough, I think I kind of look at it that way. I kind of feel awkward sometimes at these live events. I'm like, so this is my vampire series. What do you say? Want to buy it? It's just like one of those weird things.
Everyone, reach under your seat. You have a book. And then like, oh, by the way, there's a little tip jar on the way out.
And then there's always gonna be that lady that shows up and be like, is this book appropriate for a 10-year-old boy?
Yeah. If he's not a bitch, yeah, totally.
But that's the good thing about having at a brewery, because you don't get questions like that.
No, you don't.
You might get a Karen stumbling in there.
You get questions like, "Is it really fucking bloody gory?" Oh, yeah.
Sold.
See, what I like to sell stuff at like a Comic-Con. Like I'm almost like a carny at like New York or something back in like the 30s. You know what I mean? Like really reel them in. Like you
saw right there. You have a cane and like one of those like striped hats.
That one where like if you like, it's like, hey, you like indie comics? No, I'm not into comic books. That's good because this is a sitcom. Come on over. Come flip the book. Come take a look. You know what I mean? Like, and then they come on over because they're now like ashamed that they've been called out in public. And then next thing you know, they're walking out carrying the book.
Yeah.
And they told me they didn't like comic books.
And you actually, you will blatantly tell somebody say, "Oh, what is this book? Oh, it's like, a PG-13. Like I'm just like, it's definitely a fucking R. Like, oh, I'll get this for my kid. Oh, here you go.
It's funny.
Yeah, I'm like, I always tell people, it's probably like 12 and up can read it, Yeah.
12 and up reading level, not content.
Yeah. How are you doing with your Pizza Boys? Those are badass comics, by the way. I like them.
Well, why, thank you, Frank. I seem to sell, a good handful digitally. It like sprinkles in the sales. It's not the same as if I could kind of go out and kind of get people physically that way. The other kind of thing that always dropped a little bit of the sales, I guess, was that there was this great place called Comic Central that was always like the super indie place for comics. And then once that sort of disbanded about a year and a half ago, it's almost like everybody, like, it's like the Titanic crashed and everybody's out now floating on pieces of wood and so on, being like, oh, what's going on? Where do we go now? There's not really another place for indie comics. I mean, like, yeah, you always got Amazon, you got Comixology, and those still work too. But that's like literally like, here's my book, and it's like dropping it in like the Atlantic Ocean. You're like, oh, and there it goes.
You just like fire like a flare in the sky. Other people are like, what is that? Is that a pizza-shaped flare in the sky? Swim towards it.
You're describing Twitter.
Yeah, it's like that. Where it's like, I felt like with Comic Central, that was more like releasing your book like in, say, like Lake Tahoe or something like that. Large, but it's not an ocean. People will actually see it if your boat's out on there. They're not going to see your boat out in the middle of the Atlantic.
Twitter's more like space. You're launching it out into space, and you never know where that's going to go.
It's like the Voyager. You just send it out in 1977 and see what happens. Today.
I always get such weird responses on Twitter. It's funny. But believe it or not, that's where a lot of my sales come from.
Yeah.
Because I think the more people don't know you, and the more your content is intriguing, just by being able to sell itself, I think it works more for us. You know what I mean? As independent artists.
I definitely agree.
Somebody going, hey, you should buy my book. Hey, you know what I mean? And we're not really hounding anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It sort of floats there. Well, I think about like that myself. Like, how many times have you kind of scrolled past somebody's like kind of like ad in a sense and said, "Oh, dude, that looks pretty cool. I like that kind of material right there." And you kind of start clicking through, and next thing you know, you're like, "Oh, I just bought that." I don't know what just happened there. It's just like,
yeah, I've done that. A recent one I got that I found on Twitter was I can try to remember the author's. I can't remember his name, but he wrote the sequel to Jekyll and Hyde. And I wanted to read something that was gothic horror for Halloween. I'm like one of those people, like when that season comes along, I start getting in that mood. I need dark stuff. I need darker things, and things that are relating somewhat to horror, gothic horror, and it's called Jekyll's Daughter, and I started reading that, and it's just random author. I don't know, nothing like that. I just, I decided, hey, I'm gonna check this out, and it's actually pretty good. So it was a nice little find. So you never know what you're gonna get. Sometimes it hits or miss,
Well, it's also just a cool concept, because he's just like, oh, the story ended with him dying, right? All right, cool. But then you're like, oh no, I mean, I guess that's always a cool thing to do, kind of like, because by that point, that thing, I'm pretty sure that thing's public domain. So to actually, just like expand on the story like that, whenever they want to do that with a classic literature, I always think it's pretty interesting.
I don't think anybody was going to challenge him. Now, something that would challenge a story like that would be the Stoker estate, because they've like basically taken back their claim over the Dracula story with Bram Stoker. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't mess with them.
Really,
Stoker you have to get permission from them and all that, but
it's always weird when people are able to keep their copyright past that 75-year mark. You know what I mean? Like who got paid off in the government to let that keep going? You know what I mean? When you think about those things, it's kind of like Disney. Disney probably is going to keep their copyrights for such a long time on stuff that technically wasn't theirs in the first place.
If Bram got Dracula himself, I'm like, dude, your fucking story, I get it. But it's like, I don't know. When I hear it, it's just like, oh, it's the family. Like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, what'd they do? You know what I mean? Because
they're keeping it alive. Well, Dacre Stoker, who's the great grand nephew or whatever, he's like the bloodline that's has survived all these years after, So, and he's been trying to keeping that whole legend going and stuff, and he's actually written a couple books in relation to Dracula, a prequel and a sequel. So
have they been good?
Yeah. he got a lot of ridicule for the sequel, which he wrote first, and then the prequel was actually really, really good. It was called Dracul, and I forget the name of the sequel, but anyway, tangent there. But what sucks though about the whole book tour thing though is that I was planning to promote my last novel that was coming out, which was Communion, and kind of present that in that tour because it was all going to be in that timeline, you know. And then COVID, I was like, man, I'm like, there goes that opportunity. You know, that I was going to finally be able to, you know, advertise my trilogy that was complete and all that, you know. So I was kind of bummed about that. So
understandably, yeah. Well, I mean, the book will still be out there, right? Because you are going out there promoting the third and final book right now. That's what you were promoting before COVID, the third and final book?
no,
Oh,
it wasn't out yet.
oh, it wasn't out yet. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I
In
misunderstood.
late March.
Oh, okay.
So it literally I forgot that literally came out just like right as everything sort of happened.
Yeah. It published in June, so 2 months after, and I was like, well, or 3 months after, I'm like, well, so much for that. So I've done the best I can with it. So it's, you know, not too many people know about it. I'm still trying to get the word around and all that stuff. So
Well, that's always the key thing is mainly getting the word spread more than anything else. You know, it's like you can have just some great material, but it's like if people don't know, it's like it almost sort of doesn't exist until like you're able to spread that and be like, hey, come check this out. Come read this book. You know what I mean? Like you like Castlevania, you like Dracula, you like sweet vampire monster hunter stories. Boom. Come check this bad boy out.
yeah, and you recently read Inquisition, right?
I finally, because that was the one that I almost want to say that I got that book. I started it, and then that probably I think was about when I got like the cancer, kind of went to the hospital. And it's odd that you think that like, because I remember like I was in the hospital, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna read all kinds of books, but I don't know what it is. It's like after about day one, you're there. You know, they just kind of wake you up all night long, so then you're kind of in like that tired state, and you almost get to the point where sometimes watching TV gets to being like, yeah, that sounds like effort. I have to like, you know, pay attention or something like that. So like, you know, you don't get any of that done. But then it's like, I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna reread the first one because I hadn't read that since like we did our very first podcast together. I think way back when it first came out. So reread that one. Boom, went right into the second one, and now I'm about like 140 pages in the third one.
Nice. How you liking it so far?
Dude, I'm loving it. Like it's one of those ones. I think that first one, I dug it the whole way through. It reminds me almost like Castlevania 1, where it's kind of like straightforward and to the point, and like that's kind of a good thing. You know, we're just on our adventure right to our destination and so on. And then that second one just kind of now it's like, oh, here's this big open world we can expand on and add in more characters and details and all that kind of stuff. Like, plus, I'm always sold. This sounds like the weirdest thing, but like if I see like a train and snow, like, those are the two things I love. That's why like Snowpiercer was like, dude, it's a train and snow. Like, can you make things better than that? I don't think so.
Yeah. When I was writing Inquisition in that whole scene from the point where they get on the train and they're chasing the carnal race scene and all that, that was such vivid imagery for me. Like it was just flying at that point, you know.
Sorry, I cut you off, Frank. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I only read the first one. I actually never got a chance to check out the second one, which I should have done before this podcast, so I apologize. But I remember really liking the first one. It's a little foggy, some of the details of the first one. But I remember, you know, there's a lot of really good scenes. I remember there's a scene where there's a woman I believe he saved, and she was bitten, and he had to take care of the kid for a minute, and he had to go off at some point where I remember the thing that really caught me off guard in a good way was I was reading like, okay, so it's a vampire story. And then at some point, like, okay, there's maybe some ghosts, something like, oh wait, he's fighting swamp monsters, so like or like frog people. So it's like, okay, so there's all kinds of monsters in this thing. So I remember that really stood out to me from the first book, and I like to have to probably reread that to re-jog my memory, and also check out the second book.
Do you like long books?
I can read a long book, yeah.
Inquisition's a longer book.
If I can get through Neil Young's autobiography, I can probably get through Inquisition. Neil Young's autobiography, he's like, oh, there we were in Laurel Canyon in the 1970s. I'm jumping forward. Anyway, present day. Anyway, here's my opinion of model trains. So it's like, I can't keep up. So if I can read that, I can read Inquisition. I mean that in the best way. I mean, like, okay, it's a little bit more coherent, I'm sure.
By the way, did any of you ever did you watch the Netflix remake of the Dracula? The BBC one?
No,
Was that the one that was like 4 episodes long or something?
3 episodes.
Yeah, it was pretty much more like a movie that felt like it was broken up into like 3 pieces.
Right. So, Inquisition's been out for a while, and these ideas I've had for a long time. And if you watch it, the first episode, there's this scene where there's like a little baby vampire. I was like, they stole that from me. God damn it.
I'm bringing in my lawyers.
Like, what's going on with that? I'm like, man, like I did that already.
You thought Bram Stoker's great nephew had some shit to say. Oh, fuck.
I will have to say that probably my favorite character so far in all the books, though, is Kronlick. Or Kronklick? How do you pronounce it exactly?
Kronklick.
Kronklick. There we go. Because you always sit there and you kind of read it. It's like those many things, where like, when you see something in paper, it's amazing, like sort of once you finally hear what they say. Yeah. It's sort of like when there's like a movie of something and you go, oh, that's how you say the person's name this whole time? Well, that's not how I read it for like ever.
So let's see.
But that right there.
How do you pronounce the butler in the first book? Do you remember his name?
Oh, the one that dies right in the very beginning, sort of. Joachim.
Yeah. So you say Joachim. Some people say Jacques.
Yeah. Oh, well, I know. I always get aware of that too because I look at them and like, well, that's how I see it as Joachim. But yeah. I feel like Kronlick, you could literally have an entire tale just of him. Like, you know what I mean? I'd be so sold on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a spin-off book.
Yeah, and who knows, right? That could always be a venture in the indie world later on.
Once Wolfgang's done, you just see what Kronlick's up to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the trilogy's done now. Now I'm working on a new epic fantasy series called Girl Dragon. So I'm changing up the gears a little bit. It'll still have elements of horror in it, but it won't be about vampires. It'll be more like a Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones type of thing. Mm-hmm. But this is an idea I've had for a long time, and it's actually, it's one of those saga series that I'm going to be doing. But I'm going to be working on other things as well. Also, I don't want to say anything about the trilogy of the Wolfgang trilogy because Spencer hasn't finished it yet, but maybe there'll be future projects in that direction. That's all I'm going to say. You know what I'm saying?
Just keep it a little bit open and so on like that.
Yeah.
But plus, it makes sense because that's always been like your name, like on Twitter and even Skype. I want to say and so on is the Grell Dragon in PlayStation and so on. So now it all comes back. When I saw that, I'm like, oh well, now that makes sense to me.
Yeah, you were like, what the hell's a Grell Dragon?
You will see.
But yeah, well, it's good you got all kinds of projects going on, keeping busy as always. If anything.
Yeah, the haunted house I've been doing this year.
Oh yeah.
It sucks that you guys don't have any haunted houses open now, right?
I don't think we'll have any. If they can't have movie theaters open, I have no faith in California.
That sucks, man, because that's like huge over here on the East Coast, like haunted houses. People do like state tours. They go, like we had one of our actors, he skipped out on us last weekend and just to go to different states to just tour different haunted houses. I'm like, you bastard. It's like something I want to do.
Well, they used to always have, haunted houses, whether they be local school ones doing them or like a little bit bigger productions throughout California and so on. Now, one question though I do have over in your area in a haunted house, because I thought this was there was like the make and break thing of a good haunted house that they took away in California. Can you still grab people in the house?
Ha ha ha. No.
Oh, okay. Because I felt like when they took away, like because they used to be in the olden days, people like could come out and like grab you, and that always made it like 10 times more scary. And then like 15 years ago or whatever it was, they made that like illegal, and I was like, the scare factor drops.
There are places where they do allow it, but you have to sign a waiver and all this stuff, and I think you pay like a little extra money for a little bit of extra attention. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But we had Haunt Scene, which is a podcast crew that goes to different haunted houses, and they have a show and they talk about them. And they came to ours last weekend, and we gave them the special treatment. Mm-hmm. We wound up sticking black sacks over their head and chicken heads on them. And we brought them we like kidnapped them out of the line and brought them into a room, and we were smearing blood on them. And one of them, actually, I'm playing the doctor in the haunted house, and I had her on the operating table, and I'm sitting there drilling her guts, and we have like blood squirting and all this stuff. It was pretty cool. She had a good time, and we all had a good time. But yeah,
that's totally awesome.
But you said you're doing like a little bit of a mystery room or escape room type of thing with it too, right?
Yeah, but it's not an escape room. It's an escape room during the day, and at night it transforms into a haunted house.
Oh, okay, that's pretty awesome.
And we quickly pull it all together. We got like curtains that we drop down, and lighting and fog machines and all that stuff. So normally I work at Enigma Haunt. I did that for the last 3 years, and this year the Enigma Haunt didn't open. So a buddy of mine, Freddie Hernandez, and his crew, they were approached to try to do one at this extreme action park. So it's called Haunting of Duskfield Spring, and the escape rooms are based off of Duskfield Springs. So now at night it turns into the Haunting of Duskfield Springs. So the escape rooms turn into the haunted house, and then all these rooms have certain themes, and it actually turned out really good. We have awesome actors. All the actors are great, and we've been really scaring the shit out of a lot of people. On one of the first nights that we had, one of the guys that explains the rules scared this lady so bad she fainted, and they actually had to call the paramedics.
Put that in the overview.
She didn't even go inside yet. It was pretty fun.
She didn't even go inside.
She was never made for that world. That's all it is. She's gonna make it inside. Yeah. She couldn't handle easy. She needs easy mode for that Dark Woods game you're talking about.
Oh man. Damn Dark Woods, I tell you, that game is hard but awesome.
I'm looking up after this.
I'm like, I want to go play, and then I get frustrated because these things come out at you at night and kill you, even though you're in your safe haven. You didn't board up the right window, and they got in through the one window you didn't board up, fuckers. Anyway, but back to the haunted house. Yeah, everybody's awesome. I'm basically like the doctor. For a while, I was doing different positions, but one of the actors had to leave. They couldn't do it anymore, so I took over the doctor position. I basically turned it and made it my own thing. But basically the whole night I got this drill, like this saw drill thing, and these guts and intestines, and I'm literally like playing in intestines and blood the whole night. My hands are just covered in blood the whole night, and my face. And people are coming, and I come out of the smoke at people, and they're freaking out, and it's awesome, man. And go chasing them down the hallway. Half the time they make the wrong turn. They're going down the hallway. I'm going chase. Oh, come back this way.
They're late for your checkup.
But the best is people are coming through and they're going, if you get too close, and they're like 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet.
You hit the like chainsaw again.
See, that's the lady that probably passed out. She's just like the 6 feet distance, like, oh, you came into my safe space. Whoa! You're like, no, that was just the janitor guy at the Waffle House. You hadn't even got even close to the haunted house yet, lady.
Yeah.
She's very fragile.
One of my cats came to visit me. This is tricky.
Oh, hey, look at
Yeah.
that.
She just put a paw on me. She's like, meow. I'm like, no.
Attention now.
So, how long has the haunted house been going on for? Since the beginning of October?
Yeah, it opened October 1st.
Oh,
So
nice.
First weekend of October. So it's 5 weekends.
So, yeah, you get a nice solid run on that bad
And
boy.
I tell you, my adrenal gland is diminished. Tell you that.
Oh yeah, I would bet after a while there. I will say like one of the best haunted houses I can remember like that I ever went to, and this is like I guess the high production value ones or whatever, but like at Universal Studios and Los Angeles or Hollywood, they literally had a mummy one that was there, a couple years, I guess probably right after the second Mummy came out around that time period, and it was just a haunted house with like an Egyptian theme, of course, and all that stuff. So you had all like the pharaohs and like all that kind of stuff coming at you, but that was still at the time period where they could grab you. So that made it even scarier just because you'd just be walking along and then you'd see like those Egyptian dog people, boom, put their hands on your shoulders and remember just being like 12 years old and be like,
You have a dude like in a rubber like skeleton Scorpion King outfit, like oh look, it's a Rock lookalike kind of.
I remember there was somebody that played like The Rock because I think that's what they had. They had like the Brendan Fraser, the Evie lady, and then like the Rock and so on. They, of course, actors. Not like The Rock's. Help! I'm trapped here.
He didn't read the fine print of the contract.
Yeah, it's just
I need to break out of these chains.
Is the Hollywood? Is it Hollywood Studios or Universal Studios?
Universal Studios Hollywood, not the Universal Studios Orlando. I'm assuming Orlando had something similar, probably better, like everything else.
But is it like the same thing though? I mean, like they have rides and all that.
Yeah, they have rides. They have. I guess the upside to the Hollywood one is that you have the actual like, Universal lot you kind of bypass, and then more. I guess because you're on that movie kind of sector, where I feel like the Florida one sort of makes up being like, well, it's not the movie area, but here we're gonna have 10 times more badass rides.
Yeah.
Hey, here's an Aerosmith ride. Guess what? It's a roller coaster with Aerosmith music. What's not to like?
Yeah. The talking about the Mummy, they have a Mummy ride at the Universal Orlando one that's like awesome, and it's been there for like ever, and it doesn't get old. Like every time you go on it, it's like, damn, this is the shit.
And they didn't try to update it for the Tom Cruise one. It's still the Brendan Fraser one.
No. It's
you
still
just,
the Brandon.
You just like get on Tom Cruise's back. He's just running the whole time. Sounds sweet.
It's still the Brandon.
That's always like my favorite part is when they keep things around when movies have gotten kind of sort of to like a point where it's like, oh, okay, that like 20 years ago that was like super huge, but nowadays people probably don't know about it. Like they kept the Backdraft one for a long time at Universal Hollywood, and I remember it's like, when like 1994 when Backdraft came out, that was a movie that like everybody talked about, but that didn't take very long for that to kind of like fade away.
They kept Backdraft, but they got rid of Back to the Future.
Yeah, well, they eventually got rid of Backdraft too. I know Back to the Future turned into the Simpson ride, and then it turned to the Fast and the Furious ride.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Anyway, the haunted house experience here has been good, and I actually convinced my wife to join me on Halloween because I'm working another shift at the haunted house. I'm doing an early shift there, and she's going to be my victim that night or that day, I should say.
That'd be fun.
Awesome.
Maybe for her, maybe not for her. We'll find out.
I finally get to get her involved, and she's like, wait, so what exactly am I going to be doing?
You'll find out.
I'm like, well, you could be like my assistant or something, or I don't know, a victim.
It's like, what was that last one? Assistant? All right, cool.
So, well, the kind of clothes I need to wear, I'm like, yeah, something you don't care about.
Yeah, it's going to get destroyed no matter what.
Yeah, so anyway, a shout out to all my haunt crew people. You guys are awesome. Haunting at Dustfield Springs, Freddie, Bob, Rudy, C, Leor, all the rest of you, Victoria. Victoria's our makeup artist. She's the only one makeup artist that we have on site, and she's awesome. So she does our makeup every night, and there's like 15 to 20 actors that she does. in a matter of like 2 hours. It's insane.
Yeah, I
Oh
saw
my
a couple
gosh.
pictures on your blog, and the production looks awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like it's top notch. I mean, everybody has a lot of experience and everybody has the passion. So that's the important thing. For
Yeah, I
sure.
know that was like, it was like, whoa, this looks really cool. You know what I mean? Like super dialed in.
Yeah. We have fun with it. We get some awesome memories from it. You know what I'm saying?
So it's all
By
about
Oh yeah.
making new
by the end of
memories.
the season, you're like, oh, it's over.
Well, yeah, I
Scare
can
them with
see
something
it
else other
kind
than COVID.
yeah, I can see it getting kind of tuckering after, about 5 weeks too, being like, okay, you know what I mean? As fun as it was, you get probably to be like doing any type of play or something for that long. After a while, you get kind of burnt out.
Yeah.
I imagine you get the people that try and get like I'm not going to let none of this scare me. I'm going to try and scare them. You probably get
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
like that trying every so
Yeah,
often. Like,
we get all that stuff. You got the punchers, the karate kicks, and people falling down like dominoes. It's great. It's awesome. Great experience. If you ever get a chance to work in a haunted house, even if it's for 1 year, do it because if you like to scare people, but it's definitely a cool experience. I mean, it's good cultural wise too, especially as an artist. It's good to know what real fear looks like on people and how you bestow that and instill that in them.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for anything horror related or suspense and anxiety, it's all great experience to see that up close and personal and to really get into those characters and act them out. And yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I guess the closest thing I've ever done that is one time in high school many years ago. Me and my buddy Cisco decided we were gonna scare people with masks by jumping out, and we had an air horn at the same time too. So we would just like jump out of the corner and scare people. But then after a while, the air horn ran out. So like, when you press down on it, it just shot a bunch of juice out.
like, well, Plan B. Who brought the kazoo?
Like that silly string.
Yeah, it's like, and just like this big old wad of stuff came flying out, which is probably worse than the noise. Bunch of chemicals flying out at you. But I just remember we found this air horn. I'm like, dude, an air horn. Like, what are we gonna do with it? I don't know, dude. We should get some masks and scare people. You know what I mean? That won't put like the principal into like a panic.
Yeah. I knew I wanted to be a scare actor for the longest time, but I never really had the opportunity or time to do it. And then finally I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go do it. So
Just do it. You know what I mean?
I actually wound up doing it with my daughter. She got into it, but this year she didn't get into it, so I kind of been doing it solo this year. Yeah.
So sometimes it's some people get more into it than others. You never know. And
yeah, and as an adolescent, they go through their phases. They're like, I'm not into this right now. Next year I might be into this. Next year I might be into that. So you never know.
It's back around to it.
Sometimes it's that time period of like you're just in a sense trying to figure out what you really like. That's what I always kind of think about that time, And then when you get older, you realize you come back to all the same things you liked when you were 10 years old. So does it make a difference?
Yeah, I'm still dreaming about Castlevania, and I was playing that shit when I was 8 years old, It's like,
yeah.
Damn,
Well, because I remember, I know we talked about before, probably on like our first podcast, but it's like when I was a kid, like Castlevania was like the equivalent of like playing Resident Evil or playing like any of the what let's say like The Evil Within or something like that. Like that was that game. Like it sounds so odd to try to explain to somebody, but it's like you would literally be like get like jump scares from like something like Castlevania, and like even the music. I just remember even the password screen. Like I'd also even think about the Sega Genesis one because that one just had that very like dark, blood's dripping in the background. I remember me and my buddy being like 6 years old, being like, "Oh man, I don't know, dude, playing that at night, like it's kind of scary."
Yeah, and then I always remember the commercial they had for it, and the Halloween commercial for Simon's Quest when that came out on TV. Man, talk about memories.
Yeah.
Simon's Quest, on the search for Dracula's parts, his eye, his heart, his nail. Like all this stuff. Like you got it. It's like, damn, I want to play that.
Different genre, but I gotta say, is that it was almost kind of like in the same kind of realm, but very different genre, still same time period. There's the ad for like Wario Land, where Wario is like, "You want to be evil," and he's like trying to like hypnotize the audience, like, "Fuck Mario, you want to be a bad guy, kill them all," Wario Land for the Game Boy.
I love Wario, man. Wario was awesome.
Yeah, those ones are really fun. Those games too. I miss that good old fashioned '90s advertising, because really '90s advertising was literally telling you to do something bad and mischievous. I remember I remember this stands out to me because I think about this nowadays. It's like it came from like a Disney one, but it was one of those like Trapper Keeper like folders or whatever, but it had like Disney prints on it and whatnot, like one of those ones they gave out for free in school. Put your paper.
Trapper. Oh my God.
Well, this Disney one had like a section where you're supposed to check, you write in like your things, this is like who I am and this what makes me, like one of those things. But it literally had a section that stood out to me. It was like, it said your favorite bug to smash, which was really like, you see that, you're like, oh, so you could just have genocide just as one of your favorite hobbies, and which one do you pick to take out? Like, that to me felt so, and as a kid, I'm like, look at that, I'm like, that's wrong. I'm 6 years old. This is so wrong. I should call that mouse up and tell him this is wrong.
Favorite thing to jam up a bullfrog's ass. Oh, a firecracker.
Yeah, but that was such like the '90s era was all about like the attitude era of like, hey, you could make fun of somebody and it's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Karate Kid.
All the life lessons we learned from the '90s makes us like heathens nowadays, I think. But that's okay. I'd rather be a heathen and have freedom than what I mean, than be one of those 2010 kids with rules. And
I mean, that was the grunge era, man. That was Nirvana, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Do what you want. Put your hat on backwards, put on your big sunglasses, you know what I mean? Always carry a skateboard, even if you don't skateboard, it's okay. Dude, I kid you not, this sounds so weird. I saw a 75-year-old man skateboarding the other day.
That's awesome.
Good for him. He's living.
Yeah, like he was just riding it around like no problem whatsoever, and he had a big old beard and everything. Like, that to me was the most inspiring thing I've seen in like such a long time. I'm like,
Hell yeah.
busted a kickflip, and I was like, dude, who is this guy? You know what I mean? This guy's like twice the age of Tony Hawk. Like, dude, this guy literally had been day one skateboarder.
That was the Messiah. That's who that was. So
yeah, just skating on by, going to the skate park in China, and I was like, what is this? Like, I'm like, but I saw that guy. I'm like, you know what? All that fear I have of riding a skateboard nowadays, maybe I should let that go. That guy, I mean, that guy's probably a professional, but that guy obviously.
Yeah.
I really feel if you're 70 years old and you're busting out a skateboard and riding around, you got to be a professional. There's no way you're not a professional.
I just picked this up 2 weeks ago. Just to give it a shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those like later life crises. You're like, I always wanted a skateboard. That looked kind of cool, I remember in 1964 when they were spinning around with the skateboard, and the hula hoop and all that good stuff. My dad said, "No way." Said, "No boy of mine's gonna be riding a board with wheels."
This is America, goddammit. That's where I got my grandson to show me a couple how-to videos on the YouTube, and look at me now.
He's like, 900, watch out, Tony Hawk.
I did a video with my dad recently when I went to visit him a couple months ago, and he's like, and I kept taking videos and pictures of him. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This is for YouTube. I'm gonna be making a video." He's like, "Oh, you are?" It's like, "Why are you doing that YouTube stuff?" I'm like, "This is what you do now." I don't know.
Something to do on a Tuesday. But speaking of other fun things to do on a Tuesday, what about that Castlevania manga book? Or that's not the manga one. What about that Castlevania IDW book?
Yes. Let's get to the Belmont Legacy. Christopher Belmont. Christopher.
Now, maybe you guys can tell me. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, were you going to ask what character that was?
Well, I was going to ask if this is actually. Well, I don't know my Castlevania history so much. I was going to ask if this is is this a character that's in a game, or is this kind of a little between video games kind of story?
Yeah, this is. I don't believe this is a character from one of the games.
This is from Castlevania on Game Boy. His name is Christopher Belmont.
Okay, so it is from that one. I wasn't sure if which one was that.
It's it's called. the heck's the first Castle? I know that the second one's called Belmont's Revenge, and that's still Christopher Belmont. And then the first one.
So the first Game Boy.
I think the first was called Castlevania Adventure. Isn't that what the first one's called?
That's Christopher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So I think they just kind of took it because they're probably like, well, here's a Belmont we can use. The game's just a Game Boy game, so there's not probably a whole lot of story except for that paragraph in the booklet. You know, boom, we're gonna go with that, and we could just now expand on it and kind of do that because I know in that game it's like the first one, of course, is just like you go after Dracula, but the second one, Belmont's Revenge, they captured your son, and now you're like, oh fuck that shit, I'm going in.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody taking my son from me. I'm a Belmont.
Well, even this one opens up with like a nightmare about him thinking like, they took my boy. Oh wait, no, they didn't. I don't have a boy yet, but if I did, this shit could happen.
Yeah. He's just got that dream of like, oh god, son, did you have that dream about your son again that you don't have? Yeah, I did, Mr. Alfred.
Yeah. So us talking about this is definitely going to be spoiler alert. Just to let you know, right?
Yeah. Spoilers ahead. Spoilers ahead.
I mean, you can't really not talk about it and spoil it, right? I mean, because it's kind of really short. So, but
it's not fun if you don't get to go fully into it. And plus, I always say like you may sort of spoil the story, I guess you could say, but you don't really spoil like the adventure going through the book on your own, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I didn't see the correlation between this graphic novel and the Game Boy games. Like, I don't see the correlation, but I do like how they started out, and he has the cursed dream about his son, getting beat up by Dracula, and then he turns him into a vampire, and then at the end of the story, that's just crazy at the end. But before we get to the end,
the soul went into the kid or something like that, but we don't even know because there's never a sequel. At least not on Comixology.
There's not a sequel. I know to this one.
Yeah, I don't think so. But basically, the general story on this one is, you have the one Barton, Sona. What's that family name that doesn't like the Belmonts in this one?
Oh, you mean the Washington or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah.
He comes in. He's like, oh, that's a corrupt politician. He's gonna screw him. He's like, at least the thing about this, the bad guys in this, they're very forward. There's no big twist about it, which is kind of good because sometimes like, oh, then like I think there's already this thing of like, oh well, it goes back decades, but this guy was a supporter of Dracula. He knows Dracula's out, so it's kind of like he gets to spit in their eye anytime he gets a chance to. But we know some shit's gonna go down.
Yeah, this is kind of this version of this story was kind of like, if you remember, Blood X Chronicles with the Richter Belmont, the original one with the Richter, where, and then the Dark Priest Shaft and all that, they have this ritual and they bring Dracula back. That's kind of like what happens here, right? But just with the Bartleys.
Yeah, and they got that, of course, the lady thinks that she's like, hey, if I bring back Dracula, it's going to be great. And then when his Dracula shows up, be like, you brought me back. That doesn't mean you got any place in my council.
Well, what doesn't the lady that Christopher Belmont's marrying, isn't her last name Richter? Isn't she a Richter? Okay, so it's like two lineages coming together here.
Well, no, because Richter Belmont was still Belmont.
Oh, Richter Belmont. I thought that her last. Oh my god.
No, her last name is like.
I thought the name Richter was in there. Was someone's last name? I thought.
I think it was her last name, Richter.
Maybe it was just a way for them to make a reference. Like no one's gonna notice.
Yeah, that's probably kind of like what it is. Because they also have like, then there's also like, there's like the second class Belmonts that show up. That's just been like, yeah, we've been in hiding. We're holding your vampire killer whip right here. Like, I know our name's not going to get remembered in history. Pretty much like what it was. Here, I brought my son and daughter to come help out, or my granddaughter and grandson. We've been training for a while.
The thing about that, he's just like, okay, the daughter, she can handle herself. How do you know? Well, look at her. She looks like she works at Hot Topic. The grandson, I don't know. He best stay here. His whole job is holding onto the box and handing it off to you. He did that. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, you know what? Well, those words, it's probably not going to work out best. You're like, I need to get him out of the house. I signed him up for this. I didn't realize he was turned. The second we get to the castle.
He needed the college credits. It didn't pan out.
Service hours for vampire slaying. Yeah.
Well, I'll say though. Go ahead. Sorry.
When he did present him the box though, that was like that aha moment where you're like, okay, there's the traditional Castlevania weaponry. You got your dagger, your axe, holy cross, holy water, and then what I thought was funny, the stopwatch. I'm like, how is this practical? Like, how? So if they actually smash it, right? Or how does that work? He clicks it and things stop.
Like in the stopwatch.
Yeah, well, because like in the game, there's like, you don't think much of it. That's like those kind of things. Like in a video game, you don't think anything of it because it's a video game. You're like, cool, it stops time for like, 3 or 5 seconds or whatever the heck it is. But like when you see it like in the comic book, and you're like, oh, it's like a real tangible item right in there, and so on. Like then it's like, that's a magic stopwatch, right? Like that thing's worth way more than everything else in that entire like case. You can toss the other things out compared to that stopwatch if this is going to be real life.
Now, I don't know if you guys caught on to this or not, but so I'm going to make some references to comparing this graphic novel to the Netflix series, because at least in the Netflix series, there's some points where they're faithful to the series as far as like iconic things like the whip and the Morning Star and like Trevor's ability to throw daggers and with accuracy and all this stuff. So they show you in the graphic novel in the Belmont Legacy here. Victor hands this box of weaponry, which is the traditional weapons of Belmonts, right? Hands it to him, and he's like, yes, the tools of my family's destiny. Was any of those tools used throughout the entire story?
No, I know. It's kind of weird. He never throws a cross, never throws an axe.
I think maybe the knife at some point. Maybe he knifed somebody, but I don't know if anything else in there is really used.
No, Christopher did not use any of those weapons whatsoever.
Especially didn't use the stopwatch.
Someone on the grandpa.
I was waiting for the stopwatch. I was like, is he going to go like this? He's going to go... Everything freezes, and then you just like get free kills on everything.
The grandpa puts the cross to his grandson's eye at some point, but that could be his own cross, not even maybe that cross. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't think it was the Belmont cross. That was like his own thing. And it's like, and that whole scene pissed me off. I'm like, when he's standing there, he's like, no, wait, let him bite me, so I can sacrifice myself. And it's like, what the hell are you doing, man?
Well, there's also the thing, because for a minute they're like, look at the kid. He's not ready for this. And then like, okay, stay behind, kid. And that's where his new wife comes in. It's like, we're riding. Like, he told me to stay behind. Bitch, we're fucking riding. And just like 5 minutes into their trip, that kid's bit and chucked off a cliff.
Yeah, I will say like the wife definitely has that like go-getter spirit, but she kind of puts a lot of people in predicaments there. She'd be like, oh shit, I got that boy killed 5 seconds in, and next thing you know, I'm hanging off the side of a cliff.
It's really, yeah. I mean, I think maybe she does stab someone at some point, but I want to say most of the fight, it's Christopher and then the girl with black hair. I forgot her name.
That girl with black hair, she reminds me of the hunter assistant in Van Helsing with the
Kate Beckinsale. Right?
Yeah, the Kate Beckinsale character. She definitely has a Kate Beckinsale look to it.
Like that's the total vibe I got from that, where her brother turns into werewolf and all that. But I was like, where are they getting this idea from? I wonder.
Well, when did that come out in 2004?
That's 2003.
So they maybe pulled a cue from that, possibly.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I bet you at that time period it would have, because the people that would like Van Helsing would be the people that work on like a comic book like this. Because people that don't like Van Helsing, well, I don't trust those people. Yeah. I really will say though that Christopher's wife, that she's gonna get the talk when it gets back home, be like, honey, I told you to stay fucking put. And look what happened. You got a boy killed. You got thrown in Dracula's jail. I had to come save you. Can't you just listen to me? You just got to go out there free-spirited and around and so on.
Yeah. And now,
Look up.
and now our baby is Dracula.
Yeah. If you would just stayed home, none of this would have happened. I had it covered. I didn't even get to use a stopwatch because of you. I forgot about it.
I am kind of still trying to figure out how, in the end, when Dracula's like, "Oh, I'm defeated. I'm going to do the ultimate sacrifice, and I'm going to enter Ilya's body and enter the baby, and now I will be that baby that gets reborn as Dracula." I mean, that's how I took it at the end. Is that how you took it?
Something like that. Yeah.
I think it is. Like there's an innocent child I can enter. See ya.
Is that possible for vampires to do that? To body transmute into somebody else's body?
In this book, it is, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's like I've never seen that happen in mostly it takes 100 years for Dracula to come back, and somebody's got to put up a ritual and all kinds of good stuff, after a while that the Belmonts kind of get the point and be like, we got to figure out some way we can get rid of him for longer than 100 years. Like, what's this whole 100 years thing? You know what I mean? Like, he could just come, like, here's the worst part. It's like, that, like, once you defeat Dracula, you're not going to live long enough to be able to see him again. So I guess that's good for you, bad for your kids.
I guess the guys who between that period have it easy. Like the guys that live to be like, 70 or whatever, it all panned out for them. Like, no reason for me. I just got to, water the plants, make sure it's good for the next year. I got to polish, the crosses, the whips, the axes, make sure that the stopwatch is working. You never know when you need it.
You got to oil the whip up, fill up the holy water,
Yeah,
I was disappointed I didn't get to see any holy water splashed on some monsters,
At some point, like, put on this holy water. He says, no, and he throws it. Like, there's all these things, I guess, from the game that they just, like, there it is. Like, don't need that.
Yeah.
There's the part where, I do think it's kind of funny. There's the part where, like, because there's the people who did bring Dracula back, that corrupt politician and his niece. And the niece thought she was going to come in like, oh, I'm going to be his queen. And Dracula's like, bitch, no, you ain't.
Shit, I got that reserved for somebody else.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal on Dracula's part. But that's typical of Dracula, right?
He's got his own plan.
He's the dragon Dracula.
I just thought it was just funny because I'm like, I know things aren't going to go good for this lady, and just watching that, just her level of confidence. I'm like, how do you think this is going to end? And it ends the very same way I assumed it did, but it was just, I just found that kind of funny. Even like, I know it's fucked up, but I couldn't help but kind of laugh. Like, bitch, you kind of had that coming.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, she was just, trying to be like the groupie, like thinking that, like, that rock star was going to marry her.
No. Jim Morrison's never going to marry you. Sorry.
Yeah, just because you made a plaster of his cock doesn't mean that he's going it's one of those things, but
yeah.
But I like when they do, like, finally, like, take that one vampire they kind of find, they like chain him up. They're like, here, we're just gonna lead him up there like it's a dog, like, sniff it out, go find us Dracula.
Well, that was like the grandpa got bit, and they're using.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Forgot about that. Yeah, it's the grandpa.
Find him.
Because he sacrificed himself. Be like, oh, I'll be able to sniff, or I could see Dracula now because of that. Because now I have this, mind connection. Which,
yeah.
But any moment he could turn on them, so they have to kind of keep a leash on him, literally.
Yeah, literally keep a leash on Grandpa.
I will say for what is it, IDW?
Yeah,
right? Yeah. I will say that the art was great, though. On positive note, the art was very colorful. Every scene was different, and it contrasted really well. I did wish to see that they had more monster types. All they had in here was basically vampires and zombies.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of hoping for at least a skeleton or two, or a Medusa head or something.
Yeah, that is definitely the thing. Is like it's weird because it's 5 issues long, and that sounds like that should be long enough to get all that stuff in there. And I don't know if it's one of those ones that's sometimes it kind of happens when you're writing a story that you're like in your mind beforehand you're like I'm gonna fit all this stuff in there, and then next thing you know when you're putting it out you're like oh crap I'm running out of pages. I don't know if it has like the classic like me and Ryan always said like a lot of times Nintendo Power comics sort of go like this where they got this great story building up and so on, and then I literally think someone comes in the room and be like Bob, you got to wrap this up. You got 4 pages left.
It did feel kind of like that. Like it almost felt like, I'm not saying this to be a dick, because Frank, you're right. The artwork does look really good, but really the only cool characters in this are like the Kate Beckinsale lady and Christopher. And then aside from that, it's like, aside from that, and Dracula, of course.
The wife's actually not bad either. It's except for the fact she just puts herself into danger.
Caught, yeah.
Yeah, like she just goes out being like woman warrior, and then next thing you know it's just like oh told you honey.
And like every single woman in there is like a hot chick, right, with big boobs.
Yeah.
It's the 15 or 1600 whatever the heck
actually the butler's cool. I like the butler.
Yeah, I do like the butler. I even like when he takes like the holy knife or he takes the silver knife and straps it to like an arrow. That part's really badass.
Yeah, butler's cool, but I mean it does seem, because I don't really have that much knowledge on Castlevania, but even I was kind of like, oh, I'm not seeing a lot of things I've seen from the TV show or from the game I did play. And I just know, from talking to you guys, and especially Spencer, he informs me of a lot of the like timeline stuff. So I'm like, where is this exactly? So, I mean, the artwork is good, but I mean, it does seem there's a point I was going to make, but there's something where it just felt like it was kind of holding back. It felt like it was trying to do like a little speed up thing. Like it's trying to just sell a new game coming out, kind of.
Yeah. And another thing is that in Castlevania, one of the main selling points of Castlevania is that the castle itself is its own entity, and they didn't really have much encounter in the like even where Dracula took Ilya, Christopher's wife, to chain her up, it was like in some cave. It wasn't even in the castle. It was like, I'm going to take you to this cave and I'm going to do things to you and I'm going to do it.
S&M dungeon, yeah.
Well, it's kind of weird. It feels like it's a Castlevania movie on a budget, but it's a comic book. So you're like, well, you don't got the budget to throw a little bit more castle in there. It's almost like there's that one scene where like Dracula's like pulling away her and she's like it's got a cool like 3-point perspective, the castle's just up there and so on. It's just like okay, well that's our model we have, so don't break. We got the one model, don't break it, so other than that, no exteriors or anything. Like that's sort of what it feels like. It feels like one of those ones be like okay, like we got this cave rented out for 3 weeks, so we're gonna try to get as much as we can down here. Because in 3 weeks they're going to use it for the new Batman Begins movie. So,
dude,
it does kind of have a bit of that vibe.
You hit it right on the head, dude. Like that's exactly is like bad movie management right there. But there's like no scenes of the inside of the castle. I'm like, where's the Gothic architecture? Like this
it's in the name.
It's like this is like staple to Castlevania Gothic architecture. Like. That's like one of the things I played the game for is climbing all those goddamn stairs.
Yeah, exactly. I will say it sounds kind of weird, like because I really do actually still enjoy this book, even if it is kind of like the simplified story and whatever. It still is fun. It almost needed to be about 2 graphic novels long. Like it should have, like when you got to about issue 5, it's like okay, because by that point, like Dracula's just barely sort of came back. He's still strutting around naked and everything like that. Like he's not fully powered up. Like it almost needed to be like, he kind of like gets fully powered up, and then we have our next arc, and then it goes into the castle, and then you start having all that kind of stuff, and just leave this as almost like like in a sense the first part of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's never, Spencer. It's never long enough ever.
It never. Well, then some people will find a way to make certain stories just be a little too long. Where you're like, okay, well, I see what you're doing. You're putting that padding like episodes in there, but you know what I mean. But this is one of those ones where it's like it is great. Like even I would say, take the story exactly as is. When there's the little baby Dracula at the end, that is what our part 2 is, and boom, that's where he starts creating the castle. It cuts to 30 years later or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you could even do. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So is Christopher Belmont descendant of Richter? or is he?
I'm trying to think. Like, if I could
Because
put,
Richter,
I know I have that big old poster. It says when all they are. I almost want to say actually, I think that it's the Castlevania adventure takes place in the 1800s. I want to say that's when it is. So it's after Symphony of the Night.
so
I
it's after,
think.
so it's probably Richter's descendant then.
Yeah, I think so. Because I want to say that one's. It's like the in between Symphony of the Night and like it's the Sega Genesis one.
So would this book really click into the chronology like accurately in any way, or?
It could, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it fits right in. Because you know the Game Boy one. Keep in mind,
Other
it's
than
like
Baby Dracula?
it's like a Game Boy game from 1990. So you know you get as much story as a 1990 Game Boy game has.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, when they when they first did Castlevania, it started with Simon Belmont. Then then the next game was Simon Belmont and his quest is Simon's quest. And then the next one they go, okay, so let's do a game about his father, right? Which is
Or I think it's even like his grandfather, isn't it? Like
grandfather Trevor.
because it's like that one's in the 1400s with Castlevania 3, and then it's like the 1600s for Simon
Yeah.
Belmont.
Yeah. And then the next one is then Richter. So now they're jumping back again. So they're kind of like hopping all around. And now you're playing as Richter, who is the descendant of Simon. And then Symphony of the Night, you get Richter and Alucard again. And then I guess that's when Christopher comes in, would be that next generation.
Yeah, because there's kind of like, I guess you could always say there's the main stories that hit like the 100-year mark. Every 100 years, Dracula comes back, and then every once in a while, there's like that middle story area where it's just like, oh yeah, Dracula appeared 35 years later. How about that? Castlevania 64. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well that
or it'd be like, it's 2094. Castlevania or Dracula's back again.
yeah, Soma Cruz, right?
Yeah.
I think that was Area of Sorrow or something.
Yeah, Area and Johnasaro.
Yeah, but I love how so that tradition of bringing Dracula back every 100 years, and I like that they can make something like Curse of Darkness, where you have Hector, and you're like, all right, well we can bring Dracula back because somebody's going to do a dark ritual, so we don't have to wait 100 years. But what I want to know is how every 100 years, how does he come back without a dark ritual, or is there a dark ritual every 100 years?
Well, it seems like there always is somebody trying to do a dark ritual or somebody trying to resurrect Dracula and whatnot. You know, there's always some lady who thinks she's gonna get something out. It's like almost there's like the gravedigger lady or not gravedigger. I mean the
Like
gold
the
digger
redheaded
ladies. I guess they are kind of great. They're like gold digger grave diggers, but they always think that they're like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna bring Dracula back, and next thing you know, I'm gonna own half of that castle. I mean, come on, the guy's like 600 years old.
He can't be picky. Oh, well, he is. Trust me.
Yeah. There's always somebody who thinks they could get something out of him. They're like, he's like the richest man alive.
All he wants to do is hate fuck the lineage of his like arch enemy, or like the wife of his arch enemy. That's all he's interested in, dude.
Yeah. I did like
according
how
to this, it seems like that. I don't know.
I did like how in this particular story that they did have the family that always helps the Belmont, and in the earlier ones it was the like Giovanni or something with a G, if you remember.
Oh, that's right. I do kind of remember that because there always is sort of the unnamed like secondary heroes.
Yeah, you had to have the alchemist who created the whip and all that, and they had all the magical properties or the affiliation with their magical supernatural fighting power weapons, you know.
This might seem like a dumb question. Is that the same alchemist from season 3 of Castlevania?
That I don't know.
No.
I don't even know who that guy is.
Well, because originally the whip was created back in Castlevania Lament of Innocence
Right.
for PS2. Leon Belmont literally had to sacrifice his wife or girlfriend at the time, I can't remember what it was, to make the whip. That was like the only way you could make the whip that could kill, well, at that time period, you're not killing Dracula, you're killing death.
Right.
So he had to make the greatest sacrifice ever. And he's like, the wife or a really badass whip that can last generations.
Well, if things go bad, one of them's not going to take half my shit in the house. So,
yeah, even
grabs
if
a
it's
knife,
before
walks-
Robin Hood time.
One thing they never explained was how did the Morning Star come into play, and how did that become a sacred holy weapon? Because it was always the whip, but you always had to upgrade that whip into the Morning Star.
Yeah, that's kind of true. It's always that thing. It's like you get the whip, and it's like, well, it's not good enough yet. Get a couple power-ups along the way. And sometimes, if you get enough power-ups, you'll start shooting a fireball out of that whip. Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
It's got magic.
Well, they were
Realistically, I will say is Christopher Belmont was the first guy I think to have the whip that shot fireballs out of it, because that was like the new feature in the Game Boy one was like, oh, you could shoot fireballs.
No, actually, it was Simon's Quest.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Damn right, you're right. And Simon's Quest did have it too. Well, then I guess Christopher Belmont has no new features.
And then Netflix Castlevania took the free liberty of incorporating that exploding fire in the whip as well. Because I'm sure you obviously watched them, but Trevor's like whipping everybody, and he just smacks a demon with it, and the thing like bubbles up and boils and then explodes into fire.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Man, that's a fucking powerful whip, man.
So, one of those whips. Yeah, you gotta kill your wife to get that whip.
So it came at a price, but worth it.
Yeah, but overall, I think this was a pretty cool book, and I've read it at least probably 4 times now, and but it's so short, it's enough to where it doesn't stick for very long, and then you kind of have to go back and reminisce again, kind of see how those short story plots just burn right through.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is overall. I think it is a fun story. It might be just on the little bit on the simple side, but it's cool. It gives you still the Castlevania feeling, even if for some reason he opens that box and never uses some of those items, and you don't see some of your other enemies and so on throughout the story. But for what it is, it's pretty sweet. I mean, I guess when we live in a world where we don't have very many Castlevania books, anyways, it's kind of cool just to have that story.
Yeah, there's like none really.
Yeah.
I wish they did. I wish they did do some kind of like manga or something.
What makes me kind of I know there is that one that I want to say it literally stars Hector Belmont, or not Hector Belmont, but Hector whatever his last name is. It has him in it as the main character, and then it makes me wonder like if there ever was some form of like even if it wasn't maybe Nintendo Power, but like even in Japan on like the old Castlevania, there had been probably some little mini comic at some point, if I had to guess, between Castlevania 1, 2, and 3, like in that time period even. Yeah. Maybe even 4.
Yeah.
What one of these days we'll have to deep search for that. Though I feel like I would have ran across that by now.
I remember seeing something for a Castlevania manga at some point, but like when looking for this.
That's the one that's got Hector in it.
I did just look up on Amazon, and they do have paperbacks of Curse of Darkness, Volume 1 and 2.
Oh, you found them on there? I looked those up today. I'm like, dude, I should buy those. I don't know why I don't have those. And then I couldn't find them on Amazon. I'm like, I'll have to look harder some other day.
How long are they? Let's see how many pages it is. Grade level reading 7 to 9.
Oh, there you go.
It probably has like blood and guts and death like galore in it, and they're like, yeah, whatever. It's based off a video game. It's probably for kids, stupid kids at that.
It's 172 pages of one volume.
So it's about normal manga length then.
All right.
We'll have to bust those ones out soon. That'd be fun to go to. Definitely on the list of fun things to do. Future podcasts from now.
Yeah, I thought this one was fun. I guess I don't have that connection to it because I don't know Castlevania like you guys, so it seemed like just a very quick and short vampire story, but it's a very quick read. And even though we are making jabs at some of the logic and some of the characters, the artwork's really good, and there's some cool action in it. So, and this was like a very quick, like breezy read. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, overall, still tons of fun. But flowing into our next vampire story, we went back with the classic, what is it, 2004 or 5 movie of 30 Days a Night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually never read the comic. I only seen the movie, and
So 2005, and so that's around the time that this
It's literally the same time this book came. God, I didn't even think about that, but we paired these together like super well.
and it's IDW
that's an
publishing.
IDW comic as well. The based
So
on
Yeah,
I
the
want
it
I want to say it's a Dark
is.
Horse comic
No,
because
it's
I could
IDW.
is it? I could have swore it said Dark Horse in like the credits, but
No, it says it right here on the back.
which one? The 30 Days a Night or the
Yeah, 30 Days a Night.
huh? I'll be damned. Unless it might have jumped. Sometimes some of those books will jump publishers too at some point, but
Let me tell you, I've seen this movie twice, and then I watched it again recently, yesterday.
mhm.
Let me tell you, that shit was some bloody shit. I liked it.
The violence is so good in this movie. I kind of forgot about that because this is one of those movies. Like I saw it a couple times when it first came out, enjoyed it, and then it's been sitting on my DVD shelf for quite some time. Not saying it's like I've always had fond memories of it, but it's just one of those ones. You know how it is when you got the collection going. Some movies just don't get back to you right away.
I
Yeah.
remember, and this isn't to throw you under the bus, Spence. Remember, there's that period like 2005, 2007, maybe a little bit 2008. You were kind of slowly turning into kind of a movie genre snob, like zombies. They run. They're not supposed to run. I'm not gonna watch a movie with running zombies. Oh,
I was
vampires.
thinking about that.
They're supposed to be classy and sophisticated. They're not just fucking angry blood zombies. This movie looks like bullshit. I'm not gonna give it a chance. And then it took 8 people to be like, dude, it's pretty good. Give it a shot.
Yeah, I do remember that when this one came out because I just remember seeing that and I was like, that was the thing that threw me off at first. I'm like, oh, the vampires in it, they're almost more like zombie vampires. They're like 28 days later zombies, but vampires, And I think once you sort of accept that's what it is, you're not watching Dracula, you're not watching Castlevania, you're going
Yeah.
in for that type of
They're,
vampire, then I enjoy it. Like once I kind of accept it, be like, okay, they're almost like 1950s vampires. I'm fine with that. Let's go with it.
they were definitely more monstrous beings, like Nosferatu class. They
Mhm.
weren't like the classy whatever. Uh, there's like different types of classes of vampires, whatever, but I don't remember all the names. But I know Nosferatu is obviously one of the more ancient ones, and so I feel like they were going for that Nosferatu vibe because of the nails and how they looked and their teeth and all that is very like old school primitive. And of course, the language that they're using that we don't know what language it was. Probably it was cool with like the language and how they spoke and just how brutal they really were. And I enjoy that they didn't have to go into like this whole backstory of where these vampires came. It's like these vampires have been living probably for a very long time, and they figured out Alaska. That's where we're going. Nobody cares about Alaskans.
Well, the whole thing going off what you said about the different levels of vampire. I think that maybe in the comic it says maybe explains it, but I was looking at them because if you look, some of the vampires, the more primal, just angry, like just the more dumber vampires, kind of have their eyes more kind of inverted, kind of in a weird angle, and have more of a thicker brow. And then the one vampire who's just kind of talks and he's just trying to lay everything out.
The
He
leader.
is, yeah, the leader, like the alpha. He looked like probably more human aside from the eyes and the teeth. So he didn't have the
That guy,
crazy warped face or anything.
yeah, that guy though was, I mean, he was a cool guy, like cool antagonist as far as supernatural monstrous vampire, he still kind of had like a certain classiness to him, like with the clothes he was wearing
He's the one that
and
came
and just
dressed for the occasion.
his mannerisms and stuff, and his somewhat sympathy before he winds up killing their ghoul servant guy that came in. I thought that was pretty cool how they had this guy go in and scout this town of Burrow
Mm-hmm.
and get rid
Jack Foster. Yeah.
of all their abilities to communicate with the outside world. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, I also thought it was just interesting, just the opening shot of him. Like, there's just a boat, and I'll be honest, for the longest time before watching it for this podcast, this is the first time I've seen the whole movie. I always jumped into the movie like 15 minutes in, right when the vampires start attacking, because I turn it on, that's where it was at, ironically enough. But seeing that opening shot of him just like seeing that boat off in the distance, oh, that's where the vampires are at, and he's just going into town, like that right there, because I think even though he's such a hateable character, Jack Foster or Forster, I think Foster, he's such a good actor, and he plays like, I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, maybe I misheard the accent, but it sounds kind of like a Cajun Louisiana accent, which vampires have, history there and myths and whatnot.
Yeah, it's kind of like a water boy.
Yeah, things didn't turn out for him.
Give me some grounded meat, I'm hungry.
Well, it's like, I will say, like, I love the intro of this movie so much. Like, I think, like, the first, like, half an hour of this movie, like, just is really cool. Just the setting up the scene, that cool town up there, like, the, way up in the tippy top of Alaska, the snow coming in, being like, okay, we're seeing you later. Like, some people are like, fuck this, I ain't staying here for 30 days a night. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, you get out of here. We'll hold down the fort. Don't worry, we're not going to burn down the place.
What's the worst thing that could happen?
It's not like vampires are going to come out. They're not real.
That's if this movie came out like in 1994 and had a PG-13 rating.
You know?
That's crazy. Because that was brutal, man.
Oh yeah, God, and then the violence and so on. I will have to say that this made me laugh when I was watching it again. Okay, there's the one vampire who's got like the shaved head. He's got the inverted eyes. Like Ryan said, he's always got like blood just covered over his face. Like he doesn't know how to like properly clean himself. That vampire reminds me of, this sounds so weird, but like Harold and Kumar, when they got like the bro guys, the guy's just like, extreme cheddar. And then there's like the guy behind him who's doing like the pterodactyl sounds, like the big fat guy, just like, ah! He looks like that guy.
As soon as you said Harold and Kumar, I knew where you were going with that. You know what? There's the other one, because there's like the three main vampires. There's like the main guy and his two goons. That guy you just spoke of, Spencer. And then there's probably my most hated character in the movie, which is that vampire lady. Just because I think you're meant to hate her, because she's just so, she's kind of like, Salacious Crumb or like Beavis. She's like, yeah, man, come on, let's fucking kill, come on, man, like she's like the first one just running in, not thinking, like, no, what? There she goes. Oh, sunlight. What a fucking shock.
There's the whole Grandma Winters can grow her marijuana at night.
Go to Grandma's pot farm. It's the only thing that can save us.
Yeah, it's like, well, I like how that idea lasts for like a second. It's like, oh shit, now I'm stuck in here with the Grandma's pot farm.
So one thing I didn't remember was Melissa George, who plays the female, right? That's the girl,
Josh Hartnett's wife, ex-wife.
Yeah, the girlfriend of the wife, whatever. And she's a fire marshal or a paramedic or something, fire department, and she's packing heat. Like, what the hell's up with that?
Alaska.
Like,
Bears.
I love it. It's just like, it's one of those ones, like, that's like, to me, just feels like Alaska. Alaska just feels like you show up, they hand you like a rifle. Like when you go to like Hawaii, they put like they lay you. Well, in Alaska, they lay you up a shotgun.
Here you go. Here's yours.
Well, it was just funny because watching the bar scene where the one Cajun dude is, and he's trying to order the raw meat for lunch or whatever, and then he's like starting trouble, and the cop, he's like, why don't we go outside, have a little chat? And then he's getting all rowdy, and then all of a sudden there's a gun pointing at the guy's head, and it's like, oh, it's her gun. It's like, what the hell did that come from? And he's like, well, they let you carry that? Wow, okay.
Well, even like you think about, because like only in Alaska could Josh Hartnett drive downtown and be like, yo, some shit's going down. Go home, get your guns out, prepare to shoot anything that moves.
Well, I'll say for
this is an order from the local sheriff's department.
Well, I thought that going to Josh Hartnett, whatever his name is, going to him for a second, for a moment, I was kind of like, This seems like a role for like maybe not like an old man, but for someone more grizzled and more like he's seen some shit. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, you know what? He's like a young guy in a town with nothing to do. So only thing you really can do is really aside from maybe race like, you know, dogs or whatever is the problem or sled dogs is the probably just like, well, I guess I'm going to train to be a marshal and that's what it is. I can think of guys from like Sonora like that. You know, they got out of high school and then they just went into the force or went to the military and I'm like, actually, you know, it makes sense. He's kind of a younger guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will say that like Josh Hartnett's one of those guys. I remember because back in the day, like he had that sort of moment like that some of those guys, like the heartthrob kind of actors have, where you're like, Josh Hartnett, that fucking guy, you know, just like remember back in the day when it was like Leonardo DiCaprio, that guy, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, Leo's like the best actor ever, so fuck you guys.
Yeah.
But Josh Hartnett's one of those kind of guys. Like I really actually like Josh Hartnett quite a bit, and the weird thing is he's one of those guys. He had all these big movies about around that time period, and then they just kind of petered out. But he does have kind of like, you know what sounds weird? He feels like he's like a long lost sort of relative of like Thor, like Chris Hemsworth. He's got like kind of he has like the dark features of like the Thor bros. And then beyond that though, he does have that good gruff voice though. For a guy who's like a very pretty boy, he does have that rough voice. I'm Josh Hartnett. Make sure you grab your shotguns and shoot anything but me. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it.
He might be one of those guys
on the other line. Tell her I'm busy.
I'm killing vampires. No. 30 Days of Night. That's the reboot.
I was sad to see the actor who played the one dude who was working on the truck in the beginning.
The guy with the big beard.
Oh, Flash from Batman Begins. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's right.
Sons of Anarchy and all that. I can't remember his name, but he's a badass character. I liked him, and then later on he's on the tractor and he's fucking grinding through the vampires like Swiss cheese. That shit was cool.
Well, there's also there's the one that's on the truck. He shoots it, then he falls off on the blade, splits in half.
Yeah, that part's really badass. I look at that thing too. I'm like, gosh, that's what I need. I need one of those tractors with the big old chainsaw on it. That's how you get shit done.
They don't make movies like that anymore, though. You know, they don't make.
It's weird because there's time periods like you can watch it throughout time where like violence gets a lot more accepted, and this movie's almost like because I used to always say that like the comeback of violence around that time period was when Rambo 4 came out, because I remember after Rambo 4 it felt like the gates were open. There was just violent movie after violent movie after violent movie, and this one I kind of think about, I'm like, this is kind of before Rambo 4, you know, this is in 2005, this is like 3 years before that time period, and this one's just super gory and violent. Though I will say though that I think that 2000s era was a grand time for horror movies, though. I think they made a lot of really good stuff in that time period.
Yeah. 28 Days Later.
Yeah, like the Hills Have Eyes remake, you know, even like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one, you know, that's still kind of interesting, though it's not as violent as I remember it. You know, some of those other ones, like, you know, like the Halloween one with Rob Zombie, even just the other Rob Zombie movies, I felt like 2000s just had like kind of like good horror movie after good horror movie. I mean, there's, you know, funky ones too, like any time period, but there was a lot of stuff that's like, oh, these are fucking good.
I think one of the most intense deaths of the movie is there's the one guy who we see him at the beginning, because I think this movie does a good job. Like some of the characters are kind of there just to move the plot along or work as a plot device in one way or the other, or give him problems. Like there's the old fuck. Like I thought he had Alzheimer's, but I think he was just some dumb old fuck, because he was just like, we gotta go out there, like, Grandpa, no, we can't go out there, I'm missing Fox News, goddammit, you know. So I feel like that, like, Martha,
Mom's been dead for 20 years. Well, fuck you. Maybe she's not dead. Maybe she's just out there in the snow calling me.
Is that what
I'm bored. I need to get out of here.
Did he say, not verbatim, but did he say something like that? Like, Mom's been dead for a while, Dad, or something like that?
Yeah, he wakes up at one point, like, calling for, like, his wife or whatnot, and they're like, yo, she's fucking dead, you know what I mean? And then later on, he's like, well, fuck you guys. I'm going down to the pub. I don't give a fuck. You ain't going to tell me to put a mask on?
It's still America, goddammit. No.
Now I'm going down the glory hole, and there ain't nothing you can do to stop me.
I'm 83. I got nothing to lose other than my teeth.
Literally, like, you think those vampires, if they bite me, they die. I'm that fucking old. My blood's tainted.
Yeah.
Do it,
Right.
you pussy! Slapping the side of his neck. Do it!
Yeah, see?
So out of all the great gory bloody scenes,
Oh, right, yeah.
what was your favorite scene? What was the most extreme scene that you can think of?
I was actually about to say, thanks for reminding me. I was about to say that, then I got a tangent about that old man. But the part was there's the guy who is I think it was that guy's son actually. The guy who was a family man. He ended up killing his own family,
Yeah.
and then when he was getting turning, and then they had to take like an axe, and the axe didn't even like totally chop his head off. It was just kind of like dangling there. Like I thought that was a very flawless cut from him screaming and yelling to like his head. Obviously, like. Well, I don't think that was a prosthetic. I think that was special effects, but it looked very good though, just from that screaming. Like,
That was
dangling there, kind of.
That was definitely brutal. What about you, Spencer?
Well, I want to say on that scene really quickly, because at first when you watch it, you're like, why don't you just push him over into the grinder, and just like make sure he's totally dead. It's like, oh, well, later on, Josh Hartnett's gonna, shoot heroin with him. So I guess he needs to have that body there. That's the reason why. That's a good question. There's so many good ones. I mean, definitely the chainsaw one or whatever, the chainsaw truck thing where the guy gets shot with a shotgun and falls on that. That one's totally badass. I'm trying to think if there's another one that's like equally as cool as that. It's just throughout the whole thing. It's just like you get great head explosions, you get great mutilations, axe kills and so on. I don't know. It's kind of hard to like think of one just right off the top of my head. Frank, you got one that stands out to you?
Yeah, it's actually the one Ryan was talking about, but right before he gets his head chopped off, when Billy, that's his name, he's in such pain because when he pushed the one vampire, his arm got chopped off.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Cut the scene
Into
back,
the grinder.
and they show it, and the blood's just like squirting, and you can see the bones and everything. Dude, I was cringing. I was like, oh my God. I was like, that sucks. And he's and they're showing it for like a good 3-4 seconds, and he's just going, ah, ah, he's just screaming the whole time, and you feel for Josh Hartnett's character, and he's like, oh shit, what are we? He's like, we gotta stop the bleeding, and you're like, you're stopping the bleeding on that. And he's like,
does someone have 100 peroxide?
Like he's like, fuck it, I gotta put this guy out of his misery, and then it's like one extreme scene after another. Dude gets his arm chopped off, and then to remedy that, he chops his head off. It's like, damn.
Well, that's also the guy too who is like, he's like, yeah, I tried to shoot myself in the head. Guess what? The gun jammed. Just be like, well, did you load another bullet? Well, by that point, I didn't really want to die anymore.
So do you think him going out the way he did was absolution for him killing his family?
I mean, like, he had reason for what he was doing. I mean, like, I wonder if the wife and the kids were, like, daddy.
Age.
Yeah, be like, you know what? Yeah, just shoot me in the head. Or like, if that was one of those ones where they were sleeping, and he's just like, do-do-do. Put the silencer on and just go in there. Like, that decision there. I mean, I know that's that one where it's just like, he I guess you can always say no matter what, like he didn't want to see the vampires come in and tear them apart, but at the same time, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if I can make that decision, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, there's like that part in that movie. I think it's the Mist, the Stephen King movie, with the Punisher. That one where at the end of the movie where he's in the car with like the remaining members of his family and his supposed girlfriend, and they just hear something just stomping outside. Then he kills everybody in the car. There's no bullets left, and he runs out there, kill me, and then it's like the military coming in. Like, oh shit. So I kind of understand like the theory behind it, but at the same time, not being a dad, I don't know, putting myself in that headspace,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those like this. Yeah, it just feels like that choice that are you going to get screwed over in the long? I feel like it seems to me like see how long you can go, because so many times in life it's amazing how things sort of work out. You know what I mean? You might not think you might think you're going to get killed by vampires, but next thing you know, it could be like bright and sunny out and everything's back to normal except for Josh Hartnett.
every time this theme comes up, like you're saying there, it always goes back to Jurassic Park with Jeff Goldblum. Life finds a way.
Exactly.
I'll say, just to clarify, I went on a tangent about the Mist. I didn't mean to play like, I want to kill him because what if I got caught after the fact? I don't mean it like that.
Like, shit, I'm going to jail. Like, hey, did you just kill those people in that car, you fucking asshole?
I mean, I just was going on a tangent because I like that scene, but no, I mean that's an intense thought process. So I kind of get I get both sides of it, but not ever being in that situation, kind of hard call, I guess, because you don't want to see your kid get all munched on by a vampire.
No.
Yeah.
Most people don't, at least.
But at the same time, I think it is true, like the Jeff Goldblum life finds a way, because I don't know, if there's one thing I've learned in life is that life always does it all seems to work out somehow, some way. So I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Bad things turn good and things keep carrying on, you know what I mean? Yeah. Shit, even in this story, they fucking make it out of there, other than the fact that Josh Hartnett sacrifices himself, which I didn't really think was necessarily totally necessary. I feel like there's a way they could have got around that, but I get why he did it.
Yeah, that actually maybe that's where Dracula Untold got their idea from, was from 30 Days of Night, Yet what they needed was a monster to fight the monsters, and that's kind of like the theme of Dracula Untold, And
that's even Van Helsing as well too, because he turns himself into a werewolf, or he uses the werewolf to battle Dracula in that line.
Yeah, but that was, I don't think that was voluntary, was it?
No, he was. He got like a syringe of it, and then like injected into himself to fight Dracula.
Did okay? I wasn't sure, but I can't remember.
And at Van Helsing, I think he accidentally got bit by the wolf, and they just timed it out right.
Right. So yeah, in Van Helsing, it was accidental.
Mm-hmm.
This one,
it just happened to work out. Be like, hey, that scroll where there's Dracula fighting the werewolf? Whoa, what do you know? That's what we needed.
What was it? It was just in this chest. We opened it, went da na na na.
But yeah, like Josh Hart, I do like that part though, where he's out there talking to the vampires. Like, oh, look at this idiot coming out. You know what I mean? And then he just like punches his fist like through his the main vampire's like face, just his hands out the back end, and so on. Be like, what? They're like, oh shit, we don't really speak ancient language.
That final fight death scene.
That one is pretty cool.
It was a little bit anticlimactic though, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it almost should have gone. It could have gone like super extreme right there, and he just brutally murders them all, like sacrificing himself in the process, I guess you could say.
Yeah. It is kind of weird because it's like they're fighting. Imagine them being vampires; they have tough skin or whatever, because they are fighting and scratching each other. And a whole lot happens. Then I think the main vampire, what happens is he dives at him, but he accidentally aims wrong, and his hand goes to his mouth. It's like, oh, they've got those soft back throats. That's their weakness. That's their kryptonite. Their Achilles heel, if you will. Just don't hit a vampire in the back of the throat.
And it's so sudden. It was so sudden too. It was like, oh, it was almost like he used a judo move on him.
What if it's like a leopard seal shot of the eyes, like no, 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 grabbed him and just went under.
Well, there's also that one I think about. Okay, because this is the worst part about a vampire kind of story. Like when you go to tell it to somebody else, is that all these people are coming back like 30 days later, coming back to run my bar, run my hotel, run my business, and they come back and they're like, oh, the fucking town's burnt down, my business is going, what the fuck happened to you guys? And then they're like, oh, there was vampires here. Vampires here? Vampires here? Well, the sun came and now they're all gone. They turned to ashes, so we have no proof. Like it's all those ones like now all those people that are left are just gonna be thrown into like an insane asylum.
That or like a federal prison or something. It's like well, at that point there's like 7 people left.
Yeah, there was like, was there 7 people? I thought there was like 3 people left.
There's 3 of the group, but out of the fire you saw more people walking out. Yeah.
And conveniently the oil pipeline, is going right by that town. So
oh yeah,
vampires could easily puncture that pipe and just soak the whole town in oil.
But you know what? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was like, oil like that, can it burn? If throwing a match on it, does it burn like that instantly?
I don't really know, in all honesty.
Like
yeah. Yeah,
don't
I
know.
kind of thought about that too because I was like, I mean, yeah, there's that oil there. Kind of, I guess you could just light on the fire. I mean, I guess it's like one of those ones when they have those oil spillages and then they light on fire and then it's like, oh shit, what do we do now? But it still is one of those ones where it's just like some of that stuff. I just feel like the second that the rest of that town nobody's gonna believe them that fucking vampires is why their town burnt down. And all the oil, profits are gone away too.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know how accurate this is to the comic it's based on, or what the following books do. But I almost think that it's too bad because this movie has a sequel, but it's a straight to DVD sequel, and I never saw it. But
I never.
imagining if it went like further, like if this went along a little further and actually got a sequels got theatrical, different things you can do, like things they brought up in this movie, but did not like, like the light thing. They used the light thing like once or twice maybe. And then like some of the other things about the vampires. Like I don't need the full backstory of where they come from, but just certain things, maybe their recruiting process. But I guess if you do that too long, then it becomes almost kind of like a Resident Evil movie. Like we're trying to bring down Umbrella. We're trying to bring down these vampires. We're traveling the globe, after a while.
Yeah, it could kind of go. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see like where you could kind of go a bit more. It's kind of surprising this movie didn't actually have like a theatrical sequel because it did extremely well. I remember, like, or at least it was extremely popular in high school. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that extended to like beyond that kind of level, but I remember this being like it was a big deal movie.
Yeah. It also kind of makes you wonder in real life, are there vampires up in the cold regions of the world? Waiting
It makes a
for
lot
us?
of sense.
Well, it's that kind of thing. Like I even thought about towards the end of the movie, like when those guys are trying to like, obviously it doesn't have that scene in the movie, but when like you have to prove that there is vampires there, like that's almost like one of the best things. It's like you can never prove a vampire because once one dies, the sunlight erases it. It's like it's almost like the sun pretty much, cleans up the remains so that you never know. It's like when an animal dies out in the woods, you never find it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought it did a good job of explaining. Clearly they're a dying breed. At least this clan is, because they're led by one guy. They're all kind of like, well, how are we going to do this? Well, Alaska, 30 days. We can do whatever the fuck we want for 30 days. You have to run from light to light, and it almost kind of feels like they realize we're having too much fun. We're almost kind of like, let people to our existence. We're going to light this thing on fire now. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, like the idea of like they can never know about us, and we're kind of exposing ourselves here.
Were they going to go back to their ghost ship in the iceberg?
Yeah,
that's the only thing. I guess the ghost ship in the iceberg. I mean, assuming Ben Foster wasn't the one that knew how to drive that thing, I'm assuming that maybe they have tinted windows so sun don't come through. I don't know. I'd assume that like they left that open ended, like maybe they got killed by the sun, or maybe they got back to the ship in time for like a sequel, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think all of them died. I mean, because basically took out the alpha and they all just backed off, and I think they vanished.
I think they would probably head back to that boat and plan revenge or something like that, and maybe they want this next time we'll be ready, and then that's where the trailer you have like one of the vampires chase somebody down an alley, and then like a bunch of lights go on, starts burning, and like 5 people are like, die motherfucker, shooting down at it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of keep it open ended right there and so on. I do kind of think though it's like okay, something I think too is like okay, it is an interesting fact that like okay, the sunlight, obviously will make those vampires erase, but obviously the fire was that just not hot enough for it. Like I mean, like what the sun's pretty much just a giant ball of fire. I always kind of thought about that. I was like, I guess obviously fire is not enough to harm a vampire. They can stand
like a holy thing or whatever, because they usually I mean, Blade they made it science, but in this I think it's might be holy shit.
In some vampire lore in movies and books or whatever, fire can purify vampires, kill them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Does burn them or that sort of thing. And then it's more of, I think with the sun, it's more like UV light, I think, is what damages them.
Oh yeah, I guess that would make sense, because then that'd be like why the plant lights that they were using kind of did, and so on. I guess maybe it's more of a UV thing. That'd make more sense.
Yeah, because in Blade, I know they made UV bullets
and grenades and all that. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
Blade 2, there's a part where he's in the sewer, he stuff out UV grenade and like blasts all the vampires in like one spot or something.
yeah. I did notice an error in the movie though when the main dude was running, he was using the axe. It was cool that he had the axe, but he was using the axe on one of the vampires, killing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the immediate next scene, he's running and there's no axe in his hand, and he's running with his hands, nothing in his hands. And
And then
then
the X.
and then the next scene, he's got the axe back in his hand.
Good eye. I haven't noticed. That was probably just a filler shot from something else. We gotta have a transition here.
Those are always just what reminds me. It's like that's something where it's just like, how about you just crop that picture just enough so you don't see like what's in his hand in like the second shot. But there's a lot of times, you always makes you wonder how many times that goes by, and you're like, you know what? Nobody's gonna notice, right?
There's one thing we can do. They just like superimpose just like an axe just moving around like
even
like
when
like walkie talkies in ET.
even like writing stories, as a writer, you have to be conscious of what your characters are doing and what they have and all that stuff, because you can fumble on those kind of things.
Did he get his left leg cut off or right leg cut off?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, especially like in fight scenes and stuff, and everybody's using weapons, and make sure this person's using that weapon, and it can get very convoluted if you're not like mapping it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think about that too when it comes to drawing, because sometimes you'll be like, you'll have a picture and then you'll kind of get through and you're like, shit, he had that in his left hand or right hand. Like, oh, okay. Well, okay, you know what we're going to do here? We're just going to flip it. Mirrored image. Okay, now we're back to normal again. But I've done that many a times where it's just like, oh, wait a second. Now they're left-handed or they're right-handed. That always certainly gets me. And a lot of times I don't think about it till like you're kind of starting and you're like, oh shit, that's wrong. Yeah, I guess you always catch it early enough, but still you still run into that. You're like, damn it, that's not going to work. Or with guns, I noticed that too. Is all of a sudden be drawing a gun, be like, oh crap, that's not the right direction to be holding it. Now they're shooting the gun with the wrong hand. That was the one that got me in the laser tag issue. It was like having the guns in the right side hands. You know what I mean? So everybody matched. But all of a sudden you be drawing, you're like, yeah, okay, and then you're like, oh, now the left hand's on the trigger. Oh, that's not going to work.
For some reason, I used to have this really bad habit of just like I'd always draw, like for whatever reason, I'd always draw the weapon in the left hand, so everybody on the picture's left-handed. Because that's the one I always would land on for some reason. Like it wasn't intentional, just kind of happened. Yeah.
Just too much length there.
But going back to this though, the part of the little girl where they had to axe off that little girl's head, like this one is boring. I want a new one now.
Oh yeah, they're like, I fucked that little girl. She's a demon now.
No early 2000s horror movie was complete without like a zombie child or a demon child or something like that.
Just some scary girl, because that was always such a 2000s horror thing. Just like Resident Evil, like, you're all going to die down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just something about them scary little girls, right? That just freaks people out.
Well, there's that one. I'm trying to think. There's the one Spencer just said. There's like not a little girl. There's a little zombie kid, real quick, and like 28 Days Later. And then there's like any Japanese horror movie. Shit, take your pick. Just throw a rock.
It's funny because like I can't think of like any scary boys in like 2000. In the 2000s. Of course, there isn't like the olden days, like The Omen and so on. But like in 2000,
there was The Grudge, I think, which had a little boy.
Oh, did it have a scary boy in The Grudge?
Yeah, so. little ghost boy and angry ghost mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. There's at least one boy. I just remember there always being the scary girl was just like the scary little girl. Even if the girl, it might not even be a bad character, but like they'll make the good girl at some point be the scary little girl for a moment. Like she gets possessed for a second or something like that.
Right.
But I think that 30 Days a Night though, that's like one of those ones you watch it. It's like it's such a solid movie. Like, you know what I mean? It pairs up nicely with like almost like The Thing or something like that. Yeah. If you wanted to have like you're trapped in the snow movie.
What would be your other one? You for like trapped in snow horror movie? Thing,
Shining,
30 Days. Oh, how can I forget Shining? Shit.
Yeah, Shining 2.
There was The Terror. I don't know if you guys seen The Terror. That was a AMC series they did.
Like a
Yeah,
terror
I
in
think
space, or like
It was based off the book The Terror, but it's there. It's like set in the 1700s or 1800s, and there's an explorer ship going through the North Pole, and they get trapped in the ice. And they
oh
can't
no, I
get
don't think
there.
I've seen that one. No,
Yeah,
I'll have to check that one out. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that
not very
was
interesting.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
I just think snow is always a good setting for a horror movie.
Yeah.
And
Plus,
books.
it always,
That
it
too.
really does. It's like, I don't know, like I always, snow is like one of my favorite settings for almost anything. But in horror, I think what also makes it good, and there's some great shots even in 30 Days a Night, is just the blood looks great on snow. You know what I mean? Like there's that part where like Josh Hartnett's like blowing people away with the shotgun, and it's got like a top down, like old school Grand Theft Auto shot going across. And he's just blowing them away. You just see all these dead corpses and blood scattered all over the snow,
Yeah,
and it's like a really cool panning shot
yeah,
that way.
Well, after a
yeah.
while, it's hard to tell. Like you could see mayhem's going on, but you can't even tell who's who. Like you see one person out because you'd have to pick one or two people out of the crowd and just follow them for a minute. You see one person running and then get grabbed by like a vampire and gets dragged. But as he's dragging him, just blood starts to trail behind him. So it's just small little details, just all that going on down there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
It was cool. It was definitely good.
bless you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Bless you.
But yeah, it is one of those ones where great classic movie. I think that one holds up real well whole way through. I think it's a solid, horror film. The action's good in it. The deaths are great. You know what I mean? It's got the cool setting, the cool story. It's one of those ones like I don't know. I dug it the whole way, just as almost for not watching it in almost, gosh, 15 years, maybe almost, maybe not that long, like
Yeah.
12 years or something like that.
Mhm.
It's one that got bit by me for a while and just like popped in my head. Like that might be a good one to do for the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But well, I guess we probably should all wrap this up because it's probably been God knows how long. But I know it's getting late with you out there, Frank. You know, what I mean, even if it's late for us, it's super late for you.
Yeah, I got some more haunting days left to do, so I gotta get my beauty rest, my doctor beauty rest.
You always got to
Got
have
surgery tomorrow.
that.
Yeah, I don't go back till Thursday night. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then it's over.
Oh
And
man.
yeah,
Next year.
that's all the main days. Yeah. But Frank, where should people go for finding your book, finding your good stuff? I know they can always find Wolfgang on Amazon, but
Yeah, it's on all formats really, anywhere you can find a book. I have Ingram Spark that distributes a lot of the books to any of the lesser main stores. So I don't know the names of all of them, but you can definitely find it on any ebook format. It's on Kindle, um, Kobo, Google Play, iTunes or iBooks. It's at Barnes and Nobles and Amazon, obviously, and basically wherever. You know, I even seen some copies being like bootleg, not bootleg, but resold in other countries for higher prices. I don't know. People can get it normal price anyway. I don't understand why there's like higher prices on these books, but yeah, they can go. And then there's always my website, which is wolfgangchronicles.com. And that's my main feed as far as updates on any work that I'm doing, progress, that sort of thing. That's where I have all my blog posts. And I just recently did one talking about the haunt season. So if you get a chance, go there, check it out. Um, it's very informational. And I have an audiobook version on there too that you can listen to of the first book. Doesn't have all the chapters, but it has most of them. And actually, I have a friend who's actually working on doing an audiobook version. He's been working on it for a while. He's got sidetracked, but hopefully he'll be done with it relatively soon. So it should be cool, to hear somebody else narrating it and doing the whole audiobook thing. So
oh, that'd be sweet to have. So
Yeah.
yeah, because I know that audiobook stuff is a huge thing now because everybody I talk to, they're like, "Oh, do you have an audiobook version?" I was like, "No, I don't have an audiobook version." I was like, "Yeah." So
It's kind of funny you say that about the audiobook, because I was talking to my girlfriend because she was helping with a book, or she's got done helping write a book, and I was asking about audiobook stuff with that, and she said, like, because she's doing the book for a Dutch publisher, she says, "Well, I know it's a big seller in America, but it's not a very big seller in the Netherlands. Like, people, you mean people don't like reading books more in America than they do in the Netherlands?"
believe it
That
or
sounds
not,
like an insult to us Americans.
She's not lying though, probably.
I've actually gotten a lot of sales in Germany, believe it or not.
Oh,
You know,
awesome.
but because I know probably a lot of Germans speak English anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because English is a derivative of German. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty interesting to see sales coming from foreign countries. So that's pretty cool.
I feel pretty good on that's pretty feel awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I slipped my words in you this late.
But yeah, well, that'd be fun to have all that good stuff. Have the audiobook. I think it probably at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt to have that. Just gets it in more people's hands because there's. Well, we all know there's some people out there that just don't always have. It's not that they don't want to read; they just don't always have maybe some of the time for it, or they don't have the patience, or they don't have the quietness, or all that good stuff that goes along with it. Oddly, I've been getting back into your books, I've just been getting back into just like regular old school reading again. You know what I mean? Like where I've kind of been like, audiobooks, I always think they're great when you're kind of working on their stuff, but it's like something's about the said just pulling out just a straight up book, just reading it right there, the actual pages even too. I mean, don't be wrong, I like Kindle just as much as I like a physical form, but just, some real books that's always nice.
Yeah, it is because it's like you pull out that book and you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. No distractions. Like
Mhm.
I'm focusing on this, and to me, definitely a stress reliever.
Yeah.
I read all the time, so I'm always reading different things between actual full length novels and mangas and graphic novels and all. So uh, I'm probably once after I get finished reading this next novel that I'm reading, the Jekyll's Daughter novel, I'm probably gonna start reading Vampire Hunter D books because
Oh, awesome.
I've been collecting those books and I've read the first couple of them, but I haven't read all of them. So that's probably something I'm gonna go to dive into eventually here soon.
Ooh, that'd be a fun one to go through because that's one of those ones. I love them. The two anime movies or whatever they got, but I've never gone to the books, and I bet you the books are phenomenal. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's one of those ones like I even get that point too, where it's like even with mangas and so on, I'm like I pretty much almost like enjoy reading the manga more than even watching the anime now. I feel like I'm at that point where it's just like, oh, just give me a nice black and white picture that I can read.
yeah. Well, the Vampire Hunter D books aren't actually manga; they're actual novels. Yeah, in text
Oh,
format.
Oh,
oh,
okay.
that's actually pretty sweet too, though.
The translations though aren't the best in some of them, and I would think that as the series progressed, that the translations got a little bit better than the first couple ones.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes I think, especially back in those days, it'd be like in the '80s, be like, hey, Bill over there, you speak a little Japanese, right? I took a class on it in high school. Yeah, you're translating this book now. Get to it.
Drop the wheelbarrow. Get in there. Here's a microphone.
How much does it pay? $50 a week. Well, I guess something.
All right. Well, it's good to see you guys, and it's always a good time hanging with the old man orange crew. You know.
It's always great to
Oh, yeah.
have you, man. Sorry we didn't reach out sooner. When you were doing Castlevania 3, I'm like, I feel like we're cheating on Frank right now. We're talking about Castlevania. He's not here. I mean, it was just a last minute thing, but still.
Yeah, it's gonna happen that way, But we got to it now. We got Frank back on. We're having a good old fashioned party. You know what? And just the thing is, we gotta do this sooner than later. That's actually this included the whole computer malfunction at the beginning. Like everything past this point's kind of worked out smooth and safe and fun. So yeah, let's shoot
Yeah.
for something fun in the near future. But beyond all that good stuff, you can always find more of our stuff at oldmanorange.com with more Pizza Boys comics, old animations, podcasts, and so on. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
A special guest,
Frank Gross, also known as FG Gross, author of the Wolfgang Trilogy. So, yeah.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for listening, folks.
Yep. Take care.
See you some other time.